You're listening to episode 279 of the Major Issues podcast. In it, we're talking about Reed Richards casting rumors, the Marvel Comics app shutting down, and all the goodness that was The Mandalorian Season 3. The Major Issues podcast starts right now! Hello everybody out there in comic book land. My name is George Serrano, aka The Don, and if you're listening to this, you can only be here for one reason. That's a brand new episode of the Major Issues podcast, brought to you each and every week by ComicBookClique.com, and as always, I am never alone. Sir, please introduce yourself.
How's it going, everybody? It's John Escudero, aka Yogi, in the house.
Yogi is in the house and quite literally in the house. Like, he is in the middle of a very transitional period in his life as he goes from one house to the next. But the thing is, to be honest, if I am going to traverse the living waters of Mandalore, I can't do it by myself, bro. You know what I'm saying? I asked you here for this very reason. It's quite an arduous task. You know, so I need you here. I needed somebody who knew a bit more about all that it takes to become a Mandalorian, to bathe in the living waters. So I thank you for extending your time out and, you know, joining me for this very episode.
Oh, yeah, of course. Anytime for Mandalore.
For Mandalore, bro. Before we get into our full thoughts and recap of The Mandalorian Season 3, we thought it would be best to talk about the latest and greatest things to come to comic book news and rumors. Man, people have been talking all kinds of craziness when it comes to the Fantastic Four. The latest rumor is that Adam Driver is who people are looking at to play Reed Richards. What do you think about that casting?
It's not something I would have thought of on my own. It's a weird rumor too. Like, I don't know where these things usually come from, but that's weird. There's an accompanying rumor, a smaller one, that like they're looking at Mila Kunis.
Yeah, what? Yeah, I saw that as well. Mila Kunis for Sue Storm. So initially the rumor was that if they were to cast this series, that the casting director or the director of the film overall felt like the role to nail was Sue's, which I thought that was pretty promising. That's a pretty promising thought process, because in my opinion, I think that she's the hardest to nail. Getting an actual factual Sue Storm who can like be stern and be authoritative, but also be kind and be almost like the group mom in occasion when it comes to this kind of stuff. Were you surprised that the leak is kind of leaning on Reed in this? And as somebody who seen the sequel trilogy, do you think Adam Driver has the chops to play Reed? Yeah,
I believe he does. I mean, you see
more than old boy from Fantastic Miles Teller.
You know what? I believe that we don't know what kind of Reed he could have been with a different direction.
Fair.
I don't know. Adam Driver, though, he's and always it depends on what kind of Reed they're trying to do. You know, like there's Reeds in different points of his life that can be played by different people. I think if there had been rumors that it was that the MCU Fantastic Four was going to be like a larger family, like it might have the kids, so that they would have to be like a little older and a little wiser, you know. And I felt like that's I don't know. I've never seen Adam Driver do that kind of role, but I mean,
right. But not to say he can't, right?
Yeah, right. Because usually these things, like, they probably auditioned or something, you know, like they probably saw something somewhere. There's a reason why, if this is true, I'm sure there's a reason why beyond just his name, you know.
I would like to let everyone who's listening to this podcast know that the only reason I have any sort of inclination to want this Fantastic Four project to work all of that is because you, Jonathan Escudero, have pointed me to the Jonathan Hickman run of Fantastic Four. One of the most rewarding reads I've ever done. And when push comes to shove, hopefully we'll be able to dissect that run in, when we're getting ready for that film to be announced.
Yes.
So one of the things I guess I'm curious about is that run, like I said again, is masterful. Are we in a position where we are just kind of grateful for as close as we can get to that run? Or do you think we should be going full steam ahead in that direction?
Well, I don't want to get my hopes up for because we're already, it's pretty apparent like that the MCU is pulling a lot from that era of Jonathan Hickman's storytelling, that whole Secret Wars, Fantastic Four, Avengers stuff. Like they've already done the incursions. They've had John Krasinski as Jonathan Hickman
with the time door. He's got time doors and shit. Yeah,
he's got the beard. He's got the whole thing. That kind of sucks though, because I feel like they wasted it because they're not going to use him. And I'm just like, I hope like the next that doesn't mean like, okay, well, we're not using this design. That's why we gave it to some guy who just kill in 5 seconds. Like whatever you wanted, it,
fan fiction.
Yeah, fuck.
right. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a case where we're just kind of grateful for as close as they can get.
Yeah, because it's the MCU and they don't usually do 1-to-1 adaptations.
You're right. No, 100%. Yeah.
You get the baby stuff, the baby version of it, and I just hope that it hits. I don't know that. I thought before they announced it was a movie, I thought the Fantastic Four should have been a TV series because I thought. Not a TV series, that's whatever, a streamer, whatever.
Yeah.
Of all the things to do, like instead of all these side stories and shit, that's the kind of stuff we need to be looking at for these streamers, like a big name series like Fantastic Four. Like people that's a big deal. That's something people would talk about at the water cooler. And that's like a family of adventures. Their stuff works better in giant swaths,
100%. It's almost maddening because the first projects of Marvel to take off from its creation, Marvel Comics, were the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and X-Men. 3 properties that they didn't own until the last couple of years. So they made a good point in making B, C, and even D-list characters mainstream, but almost have a harder task now in making their, the front runners. How would they integrate them into a world that has already existed? The big rumor would be that this family was lost to time or lost in a dimension. Or how do you feel about that sort of introduction if they were to go that route of like, well, they were just explorers and they got stuck in a time vortex or something or other?
I don't hate it if only because one, they are explorers, so it wouldn't be like so out of the place. But two, it also gives them an excuse not to have to act like everybody else in the MCU. They're people of time. They're from the fucking 60s or whatever. They can be the nuclear 60s family for a bit and develop into something more than that. But that's been the rumor for a long time. I'm starting to think that that's really the deal. Like that's really the case.
Well, it's going to set a precedent. I feel like in a lot of ways because we're gonna have to introduce the X-Men soon. I don't
think the X-Men are coming to this MCU. I think a reboot happens.
Yeah, even if Secret Wars creates a reboot of sorts, I'm very curious because the more I'm alive, the farther we are from World War II, which means the farther we are from the Holocaust, which means the older Magneto gets. Yeah. So I'm very curious. Because a lot of these characters, even Frank Castle, right? For years, he was tied to the Vietnam War. Like he was linked into that. Now we've moved on to a bit of a Desert Storm sort of Operation Iraqi Freedom as the sliding scale continues. But they have a arduous task trying to fit these people in a timeline of events, right? Like, well, Magneto is a Holocaust survivor. Well, yeah.
I think they'll see that
in 17 years. We'll be 100 years from the Holocaust.
They probably see it as some creative challenge, but I mean, I feel like it's easy just to be like, he's a mutant. Like he lives, it's 100 years ago, but he's a mutant. He's fine. Like he'll be okay.
There was a lot of talks that the role that they wanted to nail was Sue, and like you said, Mila Kunis is the hottest rumor out there. As somebody who is a fan of the Fantastic Four, do you agree? Is Sue the person out of the four that you should try to nail? Is there somebody you think is a bit more difficult in characterization?
I think that Sue is probably the hardest to nail, and that's why you need to get her down first, because it's a family dynamic. You started the mom. That's just how that goes. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like you said about Sue too. She's not just a mother figure. She's also like one of the most powerful people on Earth. Like beyond just like, oh, we have powers. Like, no, she's beyond. We have powers. She's like
in the 60s. It was, oh boys. Like that was her role.
Like,
in the 60s. It was like, oh, won't you boys, won't you boys behave? But we're at a point where she's like, I will pop a blood vessel in your brain, and I will make sure that you are, disabled for the rest of your life, and you will live your days like that.
You'll never get another boner in your life. I'll cut it off.
It's a completely different change. I really do hope that they nail that, because from the Fantastic Four films of the past, Sue has never really been given much of a role of where she has agency. She's kind of made to be the, oh, why can't my husband just be better sort of role.
I mean, she should probably have some of that too. She should have
100%. But if that's all that there is, you can kind of get stuck there. But you're down. You're down for an Adam Driver led Baxter Building.
I mean, it's more that I just kind of trust them at this point, more than I'm like thinking of Adam Driver as the Reed Richards.
Daisy Ridley, Sue Storm. Is that where we're going? John Boyega, Human Torch, Oscar Isaac. The Thing. Let's do it, baby.
Getting crazy. We're getting crazy.
Hey, they coming over anyway. People have been getting crazy. You're making an excellent point. People have been getting crazy. Man, this entire week, they've done nothing but trickle in casting for this Lilo and Stitch live action series. Possibly because they're trying to get out of the way of Dwayne Johnson's Moana. Because my man decided to make his announcement the same week that they announced that other film.
Is there like a Hawaii anniversary coming?
Hey, bro, that's what I'm saying. But yeah, they had said that a woman would be playing a like child protective services agent, which made the whole internet go crazy over the idea that we might not get Bubbles. Were you aware of this Bubbles controversy that has gone on over the internet?
First of all, I love Bubbles. I mean, I feel like everybody should, but also it only came from like a screenshot from a weird source. So like a third
tier.
Yeah, like I was like, this is probably not true, and then they immediately announced it like the next day, probably because of that rumor.
Right. Yeah, because Maia Kealoha was cast as Lilo. Sydney Elizabeth Agundong was cast as Nani. Kahayu Mikado is playing David. That's the guy you were just talking about not so long ago. Zach Galifianakis joined the cast in February. It's not known who he's playing, which is very weird. Why are they hiding that? What's going on there?
They said he was going to be Clique, and I was like, that's not right.
Right.
And I don't think, and then it turned out that's probably not right. So I can only imagine he's going to be
The Russian, the Russian
the other
alien
one,
guy,
the big alien, Jumbo,
Russian alien. Oh, we
Yeah,
must catch it. Yeah,
and that's
he
a
was
perfect part for him.
100%. Yeah.
Is there was a controversy around Nani too?
There was around Nani because they were saying that she was whitewashed, even though
Not only
this
that,
actress
they were
is
just it was
of
just
the
like,
islands.
some of the more sensible people were just like, "Hey, this doesn't look like that little girl at all." Like they don't
Oh yeah,
look
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
each other.
Oh,
at
you
all.
talking about like siblings to
Like,
be siblings?
yeah,
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, but if we're going back to the last subject a bit, I had to watch a film where Michael B. Jordan and old girl were siblings.
Oh my God.
And they didn't even care to explain how or why any of that was the case.
We need some more of that. Sometimes we just need to not explain. It just
accept it. Love is love. Family's family. It is what it is. Do you think that this film, this Lilo and Stitch film, has a big hill to climb? Or is it baked in, the original was so good, there's no way this could fail kind of stuff?
They're getting the original Stitch too.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's gonna have that big of a hill to climb. I think it's so recent in people's minds that they're at least curious about it. I think if it doesn't, I think it'll do pretty decently at the box office, and then people will stream the shit out of it afterwards. For sure.
I can see that. Yeah. I tell people, somebody asked me the other day about it, and I'm like, I love Lilo and Stitch. I really, really love the film. One of the best parts about it is there's like no mustache twirling villain, you know? There's no like person they have to beat when they realize the power of friendship or any of that kind of stuff. It's just kind of like
is misunderstanding.
Yeah, that's all. Literally, that's all it is. And so with that sort of marketing and that sort of story, I think it can really stand the test of time if they were able to do the series well. There will be a time where, combined with this animation and the live action, where people won't remember a time where there wasn't a Lilo and Stitch project out, and a lot of people are feeling that kind of way about Comixology. There was a time where people felt like that was a safe haven to read their comics. Comixology, right? Amazon.
Yeah.
Can't beat it. It's a juggernaut. But it seems that the app itself might be collapsing upon itself. Marvel Comics is shutting down their Comixology partnership in June of 2023, and starting on May 2nd, the ability to purchase comics will be removed entirely from the Marvel Comics app ahead of that June shutdown date. What is going on?
Well, I have heard of. I knew Comixology was dying. Right, that had been a thing for a little while.
E3 is dead.
E3 is dead too.
E3 is dead. What is going on?
This all comes from. It's kind of like Netflix, you know, like what Netflix started the streaming thing, and then other companies were like, we could just do it ourselves. Like,
yeah,
we don't need you, and that's pretty much what's happening with everything else. You know, like Marvel's gonna be like open their own app with no partner, and they'll host their own stuff, and it's like, we don't need Comixology, we don't need Amazon, we don't need to share the cut. Why would we do that? We could simply make our
take it all.
And DC did it already. What's it
so
called?
Close, bro. So fucking close.
Ultimate something.
Yeah, they're so close. They even have, what is it? Distillery. That new comic creator owned almost.
Oh, and Substack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's got their own shit. They don't need Comixology anymore.
Right.
It's sad, but
to be fair, I felt like at one point Comixology was kind of getting by its past accomplishments.
Yeah.
It didn't seem necessary. It didn't seem like it was trying to change the game or make things easier for anybody. It looked like it was just trying to get IPs.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this to slander anybody who's working in that field. I'm just saying that there seemed to be a point where just having the most users and the most IPs was the paramount of what they were trying to do over there, not necessarily make things easier or introduce new concepts or series to their readers. we dealt with this, was it 2 years ago, where the whole diamond distribution stuff, right? Like where they revamped the entire way that this stuff comes out. And we're in a position now, even with there was a rumored Screen Actors Guild strike, right? Because just the way in which we take these stuff in has completely changed. It's not the same stuff. It's not the same way that you would go and pick up a comic at a store or, watch a series because you already have a subscription to a service. And the way that people are getting paid with this new medium of just media has caused a lot of people to like kind of, hey, we're gonna put the brakes on this, because how does all this work? How do people get paid? How do people get their residuals, this, then, and going forward? Do you see Marvel coming out with their own sort of app? Do you think that's the next goal here?
Oh,
come up with some sort of
there's no problem. That's definitely happening. I'm more concerned with the people who pay for their digital collections on ComicBookClique.
Oh wow, yeah.
What happens to them? Do they get vouchers? Do their books just transfer over? Like
my equivalent is like Voodoo. And if push comes to shove and they were ever like, by the way, everybody, Voodoo's closing down, I'm like, oh, well, my shit's on there. Where is it going? Do I still have it? Do I still own it?
Voodoo's weird, right? Because I use Voodoo all the time, but I connected it to all the other apps. Like, so any movie that I own, they all go everywhere. They're in the Google Play. They're in the Movies Anywhere.
Yeah.
But the licensing is weird. Movies Anywhere doesn't have some licenses that Voodoo does. So my movie collection on Voodoo is 300 movies, but then my Movies Anywhere, it's like, one something or two something. I'm like, what the fuck? That's scary. Like, how does that work with Comixology? Yeah. Like, if it shuts down and DC has an app and they say you can have your comics, but like Marvel decides you can't. So like, what happens to have my collection?
Yeah. 100%. I guess they're going all in on Marvel Unlimited, huh?
I mean, I guess, but I think of like our friend Greg, GT Rebirth, who's always on the show. Like, he reads digitally and he buys the digital books. Like, he buys them from Amazon, I think, or Comixology probably. But what happens to him?
Yeah, in a world where they could just yank it off the digital shelves.
Yeah.
Like what does work in that instance. I can see a lot of this stuff being debated over, and sort of this is a new concept. Like all of this, like I said again, they had a hard time paying people in general, right? Like residuals and all that kind of stuff, royalties and stuff. And now comics are more accessible than they've ever been, but they can't seem to nail down the logistics of the inside of it, the business side of it. So I can totally get that. This is like Marvel's smallest issue as it continues to be the juggernaut that it is. DC is seemingly putting its best foot forward by continuing to delve into the world of the Batman. We got the official trailer for the Penguin this week, which was a bit of like a behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And almost like a proof of concept of the series. Do you feel any better? Were you initially excited about this? Did this help? How do you feel about the overall idea of giving the Penguin a series like this, and on a prestige platform like Max, which is what we're hearing the Warner Brothers Discovery / HBO merger app will be?
When you hear something like they're making a show about the Penguin, it's like, you first it's like, what you imagine first, like, okay, well, they decided I'm gonna make a show about the Penguin, and it's more like, it's like, what the fuck? But the more I think about it, it's like, we need the only way for me to get excited about it is to think about it like they need to push the world of the Batman forward with a certain thing, with a certain plot development, and they decided that the Penguin was the character that they would use to do that, instead of thinking of it like, a show about the Penguin. We made a show about the Penguin's origin and
Right.
how he grows up to become the Penguin. It's more like, it's more like we need to build the world of Gotham for the Batman 2, and instead of just doing it in exposition in the second movie in like a couple sentences, like, you know, Oswald took over as after Falcone, and it's like, okay, that's it. We can see it happen. Why not?
Is there any issue with this sort of lore almost acting against the mainstream Batman introduction or any of that stuff there?
I don't know that it goes against it. I feel like the Penguin has been, especially after Gotham and even before that, like, I know people think of like the Danny DeVito real Penguin man, but like we've seen him as more like a mob. Not a mob, but like, you know, like
no, you're 100% right. I think they've done a good job in the last, I want to say, 15 years to establish like he is a constant in Gotham. Yeah. He may not be the biggest bad, but he is as much a part of Gotham as Batman is. And I not for nothing, I love Colin Farrell's portrayal. You know, I almost liken it akin to Liev Schreiber as Kingpin.
Yeah.
It's like this because we've never seen. We had the Cockney Penguin in the Arkham Knight series, right? And Kingpin we've always had, but we've never had like a mafioso Italian. Yeah. Hey, oh, Spider-Man. Hey, oh, whoa, hey, I'm walking here, kind of Spider-Man. So like to get that version of Penguin and to get that version of Kingpin, I kind of dig it. I do kind of dig it. Hey, Rotolada. Hey, oh, Spanish.
I thought while I was watching the Batman, I thought, like, what a shame that James Gandolfini, Tony Soprano, died, because he would have made a perfect Penguin for this world. And then there's no way he
didn't have him marked for this show.
It had to. Like, somebody somewhere thought of that already. Watching The Sopranos, I know someone thought of it already because it's so perfect. And then the trailer for the show, the Penguin comes out, and it's like, oh, well, they just turned the Penguin into Tony Soprano instead.
Right.
So, it's as close as it gets.
Do you think something like this, a concept like this, warrants multiple seasons, or do you think we're better off almost in like a Elseworlds? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like a short run, kind of get the story out.
Not even really Elseworlds, just like leave it here. Like Penguin does this thing for Gotham, and that sets up some shit in Batman 2, and that's fine. That's it.
I guess more so what I mean is one shots.
Yeah, fine. Like, just let it do what it's there to do, and you don't need to come back to it. That's why I got weird when they announced like a Loki season 2, because it was like, okay, Loki it starts. They create the multiverse with their actions by accident, and it's like, all right, done. Like, what are we doing season 2?
Bro, I won't lie. I was not on the board for Loki season 2.
I won't. It's weird.
I dug Loki season 1. Don't get me twisted. I dug all the effects of the universe past that. I don't think that there's more there, and I fear that the there that they see that is worth selling is just Tom Hiddleston being adorable, which is viable, but there's not much there. You know what I'm saying? And if we're just gonna pull that rope until we get enough, I worry what that all means. And there was a point in time in which my biggest excitement for that series would be someone like Loki bumping back into a He Who Remains type, but with all that's going on with that side of the camp, there's a lot. There's a lot that's going on over there. But we have more and more footage of Joker 2. I can't pronounce that title. What is it?
I'm not French. Madness of 2 or something like that.
Is Bruce gonna remember that creep that came up to his house and was like that put his fingers on his mouth and was like, this creepy guy showed up?
You're just gonna feed him a Jolly Rancher?
Yeah, that stuff was weird, man. So the next thing on DC's docket is The Flash. We've gotten more and more TV spots, more stuff. People are raving about this film. Where do you sit on this? Where do you, where is your anticipation or almost excitement for this film? Uh, you know, we hear that it's going to be the thing that sort of sets off James Gunn's first chapter, Gods and Monsters, for the DCU. Right. But as someone who has been an unapologetic fan of the Snyderverse as it stands, what do you see this film like? What does it have to be for you to enjoy it?
I don't know. Well, I'm weird about Flashpoint in general, like the story Flashpoint, the original story, because it sets off the New 52, and I'm like, fucking, it's bad memories, it's PTSD. So,
yeah,
like when they announced that the first movie that they're gonna do of the Flash is a Flashpoint, like we've skipped. We've hopped over all the development.
Crisis.
People will only ever know, like, Barry Allen's whole thing for a long time was like, I will not travel time all willy-nilly because it's
dangerous.
It's dangerous. I will definitely never go back to save my mom. Who knows what that could do? And when he eventually does do that, it's after a lot of things. It's like he's been through so much that
right.
He decides, why not? So, but we're in a time where people only know him for like messing up the timeline, and going back to save his mom is the first thing we ever see him do in his first ever movie.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
What are we doing? So already going into it, that's how I'm thinking. And then they start talking about, like, this is early on before James Gunn, and they're like, this movie was tested and people were saying it's the greatest thing since The Dark Knight. Right. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what the hell?
What does that mean? What does that mean?
The hell? What is this? Who is saying this? Like, why are they saying this? And then it comes out, it keeps on, the same story keeps coming out, like, and then more people of more prominence keep saying it now, like,
so Tom Cruise said this is cinema or something similar, right?
Cruise is like, this right here is gonna save America. I know it. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. But then the trailer came up, and then the trailer was really good, and I was like, oh. Maybe if this movie is as good as the trailer is selling it on me, maybe these people actually we're talking about something for real.
I have a bit of a controversial take. I believe that Warner Brothers can't make a bad trailer.
I think it's hard for anybody to make a bad trailer because all you have to do is snip out the good parts.
I just always feel like their stuff has always looked super fire in the trailer. Like that, hell yeah, I'm there for that. Oh yeah, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm there for that. Even Birds of Prey on occasion, I was like, yeah, man, super down for that.
I like that movie. I didn't like
Birds of Prey.
Yeah, I didn't like Cassandra Cain, but I thought it was a good movie.
I might have to go back, bro. I think it's one of the least revisited DCE EU movies in my opinion.
I've only seen it once. I didn't feel like I
so maybe you have to maybe you both have to go back.
Because the movie has to be like really good for me to want to go back. Like I've only seen a lot of good movies once. Like it can be good.
So did you not feel like it kind of fleshed out the rest of that world?
The Harley Quinn stuff? No.
That's the whole DCEU, right?
No, that was just some small story that had no impact on any greater universe because the greater universe barely existed at the time, and nobody pretty much anything after Justice League is a disconnected mess. So
yeah.
But getting back to the Flash thing, I had read not a long time ago, but around the time of the test screening rumors, I had read a plot leak. I read the thing, and it was outrageous. I was like, wow, can you imagine if they made this movie? So the trailer comes out, and it's that movie, and I'm like,
and you start seeing pieces of it, huh? Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, like this is, they might not. That's why I'm like, they might not be lying. This might be awesome.
So if they
It could be.
dust off Flashpoint to do it for this series, what do you think is the next major event that James Gunn should be moving towards? Should it be a crisis? Is that where the next shoe would drop in this sort of instance? Obviously, this man's talking about a 10-year plan, right? Roughly.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, we do, Brave and the Bold and Superman Legacy, and then we go into Flashpoint. We go into Crisis. But as a DC fan, where can you see this universe going? Where should be the crescendo in this first hump of Gods and Monster be?
I think a crisis should be like the ultimate goal for their stories. Like that should be the big one. I don't know if it should be the first one. I don't know. I don't know that it needs to be like a multiversal threat off the back. I think first just put the Earth at risk. Listen,
at
risk.
For those who may not be fans of it, I thought that Zack Snyder's Justice League did a perfect precursor to that, right?
Right.
Like sort of introduce the threat, make you aware of it, make you also known that like it's on another side. It'll get here when it gets here, but it's there and it's dangerous. Be aware, be mindful, and we'll do the other stuff, but always know that hidden threat is always waiting, sort of stuff.
Exactly. That's kind of the thing I want to see. Like we could set something off. If I had it my way, we would get all Green Lantern centric at first and do some cool I guess night or some wild shit. I don't know. Nothing like we already skipped ahead and did goddamn Flashpoint first. Like at this point, everything's out the window. Like you might do Sinestro Corps War, not Blackest Night. Sinestro Corps War.
Yeah. It almost makes me sad because it makes me think like, is that the Hallmark Flash story now? Like, is that just what it is? Like, are we just stuck with Flashpoint? Like that's, I dug it.
Save the multiverse.
Listen, I'm a booker. I'm somebody that has to do the schedule here. I'm somebody who has to, plan out content and make changes when we need it. As a reader who is brand new to the whole idea of this enormous continuity, I thought it was incredibly creative to blame the Flash and then subsequently Dr. Manhattan, right, for the changes done. Yeah. I thought that that's a built-in excuse for your own universe. Like not many people have that shit, so that was pretty smart if we were going to do that, to do it this way on that. But we already are breaking that, in case of mercy, break glass. We're already doing that now for the DCU. I can't help but wonder or hope that if James Gunn is just pulling books off the shelf, I kind of want the DCEU to be the Kingdom Come universe. if you're asking me, I would love Henry Cavill to be the Kingdom Come Superman.
That'd be wild. That'd be so wild.
I feel like you simultaneously get to make your criticisms of the universe, right, while also making it right, setting it right. Yeah. You could have your cake and eat it too in that instance. As a fan, do you honestly believe that Zack Snyder's Justice League, or I guess maybe I should even say Black Adam, is the last time that we see Henry Cavill in that suit?
Yes. No, I mean, I think unless they have some idea for some multiversal shenanigans where we get to see 3 Supermen or something like that, if that's the idea for the future, then we'll see him again. But beyond that, I don't think we'll ever see. I think the poor guy got screwed around so bad that
Yeah, he did.
I don't know if he'd want to come back. It just doesn't make any sense. It's probably time to move on for a long time.
Have you mourned it? Are you ready for new Superman already?
I mourned it in 2016. That's
the year BVS came out.
2017, I should say, not 16.
That's fair. That makes more sense. Justice League.
Because for a long time, BVS was like this unfinished story for me, like that we would never see the end of. Like, oh man, like,
Right.
and then we got Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I was like, that's my ending. They fit it. They followed Cal into the sun. The
Okay.
arc came all the way around. You know, that was my ending. It was fine. And
So
anything that came after that is just
does that mean you be more torch and pitchforks if we didn't get Zack Snyder's Justice League?
if we didn't get Zack Snyder's Justice League and then they teased Henry Cavill coming back, I'd be like, what the hell?
Back at him.
That's ridiculous.
Right.
But I saw his whole arc. Like, it finished. I am finished. I had my moment in the sun with them. I was standing right along with them.
Yeah.
I am over like the Snyderverse. Like, it finished for me. I have those 3 movies. I can go watch them whenever I want. Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League. That's a beautiful trilogy right there about Superman. Birth, death, rebirth, done. Like, I don't have to.
Matter of fact, it could be argued that no single director was given the power to wield the entire universe in their own trilogy.
Yeah, like, that's nuts. Like, he took a story about
crazy.
Superman,
absolutely crazy.
DC universe around it. Like,
nuts. Here's Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Cyborg, The Flash. Like, and I'm gonna do it all, and I'm gonna do it all on my own, and the way I see it. That's a lot.
Yeah, I got to close the book. Like, okay, that's awesome for me. I have that. I'm ready to do a 10-year James Gunn extravaganza. Whatever the hell, you know.
He's doing like his own showing of this stuff. I saw him on Twitter promoting something.
Snyder's doing a he called it SnyderCon, and it sold out like immediately. But it's a showing where they will also do Q&A, or is it commentary during the film? So it's one of the two. I feel like commentary during the film would be weird though, because you're just
is a bit weird. I think
talking over the movie the whole time.
I think that might be a bit weird.
This is a little annoying, actually. Like, I don't think I like this.
No. That's ridiculous. But yeah, man, the fan base is there for it. It's been there since he's left, for good or for ill, right? Like,
I kind of wish they would just move on to, like, we got a cool ending, but it is what it is, I guess. We'll see how that works out.
You would think the Snyder Cut being released would be the massive victory, but they immediately went on to release the Snyder verse.
Yeah. The whole thing.
Yeah, we want the whole thing. And you can't blame them. Having a huge world building, connective universe, it is hard. We've seen them try it across the board in almost every medium. Even the you seen that Universal Dark monster thing that they were trying to do at one point.
It kind of sucks to see organic thing get put into a money machine and turned out that way. Like, the dark universes are in now. Let's do a cinematic universe for everything. And it's like, cinematic universes are cool. Shared universes are cool. I grew up with shared universes. Okay.
100%.
Not everything needs a shared universe. Like,
especially if you don't have the idea for it. Like, especially if you're just going to throw it into, like you said, the money making machine and hope that it turns out a shared universe kind of thing.
I got a hot take, and it's going to work as a segue. You cinematic universes. Everybody wants. Now that Super Mario Bros. Came out and it was a success, it was an awesome movie. Everybody talks about this Smash Bros. Movie. Like, we got to do a Super Smash Bros. Movie where you can combine all the different Nintendo IPs. And I'm just like, what? Be careful what you're asking for. Like, really be careful what you wish for, because first of all, you do a Super Smash Bros. Movie, and what are they combining to face? Like, what are they fighting? What is going on? Like,
but another thing is, like, the idea that your mind, not your mind, like the royal you, your mind goes automatically to a Smash Brothers film, almost deflates the success of the freaking Mario movie you just watched.
Yeah. Like, now I want to see
you never get to sit with it and go, wow, in my era with this character, all the time I spent, you never get to sit there and be like, what an awesome achievement. Wow. you know, what great work, what a great cast, what a great director. You're immediately like, what's the next project? How do we go further with this? And I feel like that sentiment almost permeates throughout all the fandoms that me and you are a part of, right?
Yeah.
Or it's always like, what's the next thing? And I've heard actors, writers even like laugh about that sentiment because they're like, I just saw the first thing work. Like, I didn't even know if it would work. Like, we put it together and we gave it to the fandom in hopes that they would gravitate towards it. But there's always the instance where they won't. So, like, you guys are ready for the number 2. We have all our money on number 1 right now, hoping, fingers crossed, that this thing works. And I didn't have that sentiment towards things like Spider-Verse. Like, when I saw Spider-Verse, I was like, put this in a safe. You know what I'm saying? Like, lock this thing away. This is gold. I wasn't even thinking about a sequel, and I'm almost terrified to watch the one they got now. After seeing trailers and stuff, I feel like they have a bit of that feeling. But yeah, how hard is it to, you know, put your all into a project and then have people be like, okay, so what's the next? That was cool, but what's next?
Yeah, as I get older, I guess I kind of like I appreciate the one and done stories. You know, like sometimes things just don't need a sequel, and it's like, you know, sometimes I want to write something and they'll leave loose threads, and it's like, well, obviously you can do a sequel, but sometimes everything is wrapped up so wonderfully that you're like, why beyond the need to get paid? Yeah, why are we doing this? You're ruining the first one.
So, how good would you say your cash grab scent is now?
It comes. You can tell. You can usually tell by how the first one goes. Like, you can tell by the story of the first one. like I just said, like if they wrapped it all up nicely in a bow and left no room for another story to be told, and then they come back for another story, they needed to get paid. And it's fine. I can understand. You know, and maybe it'll even be good. But it is what it is.
I can see that. Again, I think you're being fair in that instance. Super Mario Brothers, as you said before, with a budget of 100 million, is currently standing at 866 million, bro.
Yes, they said it's gonna cross $1 billion next week.
That's bonkers. And if anyone has seen anything, you would know that Hollywood is going to take all the wrong lessons from this.
Yeah.
And do all the wrong stuff because of this. But I'm happy that, you know, Mario is doing what he does. But there's also a bit of me that thinks it's a bit funny because we all know Mario was older and more world renowned before Sonic was, right? But that Sonic film came out, basically 2 Sonic films came out before this first Mario film would come out. So to see him come out so bold, right? And be like, your movie was good, but you didn't finally get what he deserved past the 90s film. I'm not saying one's better than the other.
They built that platform he jumped off of. Sonic, Detective Pikachu, The Last of Us, they were building a steady stream of good video game content that's true. Trust the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Like, okay, I'll go watch it. Even if the critics are saying it sucks, I'm going to go watch it because video game movies have been pretty good lately, and it ends up making $1 billion freaking dollars. What happened though? Like, how do we get here? Is this on a spite?
Doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm gonna ask you right now because we just were talking about your cash grab nose. I'm gonna ask you about several films here and see how you feel about whether or not these things were cash grabs or not. Again, the only is whether or not you are afraid of offending the creative team behind any of these films. But I will tell you this, they are video game films. So that should ease the mind a bit. So what do you think about the first Mortal Kombat? Cash grab? Or do you think they were really trying something?
Probably a cash grab.
I know the second one was a cash grab. That second one, bro. Holy shit.
I don't think two people, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a director's commentary out there that proves me wrong, but I don't feel like two people were like, we worked on this Mortal Kombat movie and we're pitching it to the
There was
studio
just something about this
Yeah,
combat, right? Where they're out there. You see, they're mortals for the most part. You have two of them, two mortals in combat, a bit of a Mortal Kombat situation. And I just felt I could tell that story. No, yeah, 100%. I don't think Tomb Raider, Angelina Jolie. Is that a cash grab, or do you think they were like, we can make a movie out of this? Like, this could be a thing.
I think with someone like Angelina Jolie in it, you have to sit down with that lady and be like, here's what we want to do.
You gotta sell it.
Sound right? Yeah,
you gotta sell it.
I feel
so
like
you gotta
there had to
believe
be
in
a
it
little
a bit.
passion in there. A little bit of passion in there.
That's a twisted capitalistic logic behind it, but I totally buy it.
There's always an evil capitalist reason. Like, at the end of the day, ultimately, when you boil it down, none of these movies would get made if they didn't think they can make fucking money.
Some sort of money, some sort of return, some sort of comeback. No, you're right, 100%. Silent Hill.
Silent Hill was weird. There was never another one either, right?
No, I don't think so. So that's not a. Oh no, there was, but I think it might have been more like so straight to something. Or something. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like someone
you cared
really
about that.
Thought,
right, they cared about that.
Right, someone really cared about this weird. That doesn't feel like Silent Hill doesn't feel like something the studio looks at and goes, "That's a film." We want to make that. I think some weirdo was like, "Hey,
some dude played it. You know, one night, bro. There's this game." I don't know what movie you're writing, but check this out. There's this game, right? It's fucking freaky. Guy's got a big ass pyramid head. He's just walking around with this fucking machete. It's out of control. Max Payne. Mark Wahlberg.
I saw Max Payne.
I know you did. I know you did.
Has a special place in my heart, but it's a goddamn cash grab.
Hey, man, money. They're out for that cash. Holy hell. I was interested. I didn't see it, but something told me that you did, bro. Something like, I almost felt it.
I was in the theater for that shit.
Did you see the Tomb Raider reboot?
No, I haven't watched it.
Any reason?
That was one of the things that it just kind of felt like, okay, we're trying to make money. And then I thought if people watch it and they say it's good, I'll check it out. Okay. But that didn't happen.
Understood. There was a bit of me like, I know the story. Like, if you guys want to see it, like, to be introduced to it, like, but I kind of know what's going on there. Assassin's Creed.
I didn't know that had a movie.
You like, as of right now, like, as you're talking to me right now, you don't know it had a movie?
Yeah. So I didn't know it was a movie.
So
like a couple years ago, now that you're mentioning it, I'm like vaguely remembering it. Is it
okay?
Like
so if you're vaguely remembering, could you vaguely remember who you think would be in the lead of that at all?
No.
Do you have any
I'm
idea?
Imagining
completely
like
gone.
Who would you put? It's gonna be some B. Who's leading this?
Okay, so the lead of this film is Michael Fassbender.
Oh man!
but there's one ingredient in every video game or even comic book film, right? That always spells trouble for any of those adaptations. And it's the first sentence in a description of the character that he's playing. Are you ready for this?
Uh-oh.
It is an original character created for the film.
Shut it down. We made a video game movie and then created an original character for the story.
Instantly. In comic book movies, all that. It's like, what? Why? We already got it's all. We already got what we need. Why did you make other people up we no need, but yeah, he is playing a original character. He's a descendant of the assassins with genetic links to a 15th century assassin in Spain.
So stupid.
It had Michael Fassbender, Marion Cotillard, Jeremy Irons.
Okay, I love Jeremy Irons.
Michael K. Williams.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. So yeah, it had some people in it, but yeah, man, gosh, you have that whole lore, and you go, but what if we just add? What if we add a little bit of something?
No, it almost feels like they have the whole lore, but the director looks through it and says, "No, I don't like any of this stuff."
Yeah, I can do it better.
So then who asked you to come? Like, just leave, bro. Get out. Get out of the room.
Did you see Prince of Persia?
No, I have not.
On principle?
Yeah, no. Just didn't look good.
Okay. What about the Chun-Li Street Fighter film?
I haven't seen any of the Street Fighter films, honestly.
None of them.
Yeah, not even the animated one.
That first one, the first live action one is pretty freaking bad, man. Like, just wrong characterizations, wrong, like, just pretty, like, almost, like, completely surface level, to the point that it makes Mortal Kombat seem like a direct adaptation from that franchise. Street Fighter is just, it's just so bad. But Raul Julia is really good in his role, but again, his role is not the role you think Bison would play in the game. He's doing his own thing. All that kind of stuff. But then on top of that, on top of this paper thin adaptation, they decide 10 years after the fact to be like, okay, and now we're going to do one about Chun-Li. And yeah, it was not very good. It did not do very well. It currently stands at a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yikes.
Whether that's, any kind of indicator, for people. I am incredibly surprised, and I want to hear about your take on this. What do you think, or why do you think the Resident Evil franchise does so well in film? Because we got a 6 or 5 of these things. The final chapter was the 6th film.
I think people just really like zombies.
You can call it anything.
Thank you, George Romero.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's what it is. People, they keep on trying zombies, and people will keep on coming to taste it.
Yeah. Do you? How do you feel about Mila Jovovich as a wholly original character, right? Created for
yeah,
for the film.
But really popular.
Really popular. What do you think? Was it worth it?
Mean,
Should they just went with Jill?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like a broken clock is right twice a day. Yeah. Sometimes, if you try something enough, somebody's gonna get it. And somebody will stumble upon a good original character. Okay. But you should probably. It makes me wonder how much people would enjoy something that was more faithful then.
Right. Did you see is it a Netflix series that they came out with recently?
Yeah, it was a Netflix show. I watched the first episode. I wasn't really feeling it. My mom kept watching it, but I wasn't down.
Listen, I'll put my controversial takes on this now. When I first played Resident Evil, I wasn't a fan. I didn't like the weird camera movements. I didn't like reading books and clues and stuff. I was a kid. I was trying to run and gun. You know what I'm saying? I was trying to get to stuff. I thought it was better once we got 3D graphics, and you can actually, like I thought Resident Evil, I think it's 4. It was just the one in Africa. There's one in Africa that's really, really good that I played when I was overseas. But I am, like, we talk about blind spots sometimes on this podcast. Resident Evil lore, I got nothing. I got Umbrella Corp, right?
Yeah.
T-Virus, Nemesis, Jill, and Raccoon City. So if you can put those things in a film, I'll be like, yep, that's Resident Evil. They nailed it.
Most of what I know about
and
Resident Evil is just secondhand from watching my brother play, because I never got to play myself. And I know
they weren't allowed or what?
No, I never wanted to. I was scared of it. I was like, there
Okay.
was all these jump scares. And I was like,
Dogs
no.
breaking through fucking you're fucking six
I
and
was like,
dogs are breaking through fucking windows. Zombie dogs.
this is unnecessary. I don't I don't want to do this.
Lying in the sand. They getting out
But
of control.
they've remade up to 4 of them now. It's probably the best if you wanted to play. Probably the best time is now. You can start from 1 without having to go back to 1998 gameplay.
Like a part of me says that, you know, some homework should be done about this, but there's like without a shadow of a doubt, there's been no other film based on a video game to have made as much money or has made as much films as the Resident Evil franchise.
Not yet.
Right? Like holy hell.
Not yet. At least I don't think so. Or I mean, it depends on what we're on how we talking, because like I was just thinking like technically Pokemon is a game and they've had like 20 movies based on the game.
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't know. It depends. Never live action though. Until Detective.
Whoa. There is a game, but it didn't start out as a video game.
Yeah, what's that?
So I'm guessing the qualification would be something that originated as a video game.
Yeah.
And spun off from there.
Yeah.
I thought it started as a card game. Or as a
No.
Has Pokemon always been a video game?
Yeah, it was a video
Holy
game
shit.
first, and then it became so successful that they made a show, and then the show became so successful.
I thought it was a manga that became a show. I always thought it was a manga that became a show. But to be fair, no one ever spoiled the manga for me, which is a tale that there wasn't a manga, because I had almost every other manga spoiled for me in school, because the cooler kids were always 3 steps ahead and were like, oh yeah, and guess what? Boo's coming, and Boo's gonna be in this guy. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I think I don't know. I have to check the dates. The show might have came out first in America, but the show. I think the TV show might have been out first in America before the game, which is why most of us remember the show first and thinking the game is based on the show. But for sure, if it wasn't, then I know for sure I didn't get introduced to the game until after I knew it was a show first. Like, if it was, I can't even imagine it would have sold very much before the show. Like, who would have known to play like Pokemon besides some fucking?
Oh yeah, right. Why would you have picked it up? That's a good question. Yeah, why would you have picked it up if you had no idea what the hell this thing was? And you are right. I am looking at yes, at least. At the very least, there has been a anime film about Pokemon every year since 1998.
I've seen like 3. I've seen like 3 of them.
Yeah, so I'm gonna guess you didn't see Pokemon Rise of Dark Kai?
No, not yet.
What about Pokemon Zoroark Master of Illusions? No.
Oh, you know what? I did see one. Secrets of the Jungle. I saw that one. That was like,
doesn't that roll right off your tongue? Oh, that was the most recent.
Well,
Pokemon the movie Secrets of the Jungle.
They couldn't call it Pokemon Tarzan.
Oh, come on. That's terrible. So you totally saw Mewtwo Strikes Back, right?
Yes.
Okay, that was right before then.
Because they never called it like it's a remake of the original, which was also called Mewtwo Strikes Back, but it's like that's a sequel name, but there was never a movie before that. That's literally the first Pokemon movie ever. How could he be striking back? What's he striking back against?
Who's he mad at? What's going on here?
Oh, it turns out he's mad at you.
the viewer. It's incredibly, it's always touchy, right? Like all those films, each one of them could have been something that detracted the entire lore of Pokemon, all that kind of stuff. When you're world building, it's always important to kind of have a bit of quality control, right? With the things that are going out and kind of expanding your universe. I say all that to say that the most recent expansion of the Star Wars universe just concluded. Season 3 of The Mandalorian, which we're going to talk about in full spoilerific fashion. So hopefully you guys got a good chunk of this beginning of the podcast. If you haven't finished Mando, come back, listen to the rest of this episode, because we are going to get pretty spoiler heavy when it comes to the Mandalorian season 3. But one of the things I wanted to talk about off the rip was that I thought Mando season 2 ended in such an incredible cliffhanger. What did you think about the choice of answering the questions of the cliffhanger in the Book of Boba Fett as opposed to doing it in Mando season 3?
I'm of two minds, because I can see why other people would feel like, why do I have to watch another show to get the resolutions to this show?
Yeah.
So like, I get that people would feel that way, but at the same time, I also don't particularly care, because I'm going to watch it all. And not only am I going to watch it all, I've been sitting here for the last how long years. I'm not going to let you and your complaints ruin this for me. Get out of my way.
Right. Don't ruin this for me.
Get out of my way. Shut up. No,
Right.
I don't know. It feels like there was a reason. Like, I don't know that this was always meant to be this way. I think at some point they decided
Okay, here's an easier or more different question. Do you think that without that, this story stands better in its 8-episode run, or could you have seen any way, any holes where they could have filled in with what they did in Book of Boba Fett? Do you feel like that they had to get past that in Book of Boba Fett to tell this 8-episode story that they told in Mando season 3? Or do you think that some of this could have been at the front and then eventually taken us to where we ended off when all this was said and done?
It almost feels like there was a plan to have Din Djarin away from Grogu for a little bit longer than then Disney probably was like, we let you guys keep it a secret for like however long you wanted, but now we want to make this money. So put the green baby back.
Yes.
Like, put it back where you got it from.
And know where the money is. Steve Urkel is the money. All right. We don't care about none of the rest of you.
I can see a season 8 where they do a lot of the same things without Grogu and then go do the Luke Skywalker episode like at the end of the season. And I can also see someone being like, we don't want to use Luke Skywalker as a big surprise again. Like, it's for the
holy hell. Whoa. That's pretty, I think you're pretty on the money here. You almost could have done this entire season without Grogu.
Yeah. Until the end when, he starts to actually do things.
Right. They almost found like a cutesy side mission for him in every episode.
Just put him over here for now. Like, just get him out of the way,
Oh, wow, interesting. But yeah, he might be the moneymaker, so you can't keep him off the camera. So we have to wrap it up in Book of Boba Fett. And I mean, listen, putting Luke Skywalker, like multiple scenes of him talking and training another Jedi, just like throwing that into a Boba Fett series, like bold and obviously an attention grabber. I thought those episodes were great. I thought the characterization of Mando and Grogu still, was the same thing because Dave Filoni's watching over all of this. But yeah, it might have been a means to an end, to get them to where they had to go.
They also get away with it a little bit by being like, hey, well, the Book of Boba Fett simply a chapter in the story of the Mandalorian. Like, you sons of bitches. How dare you? I definitely, but I definitely think there was a different plan in place. But did it bother me? No, not really. I think the biggest thing about Book of Boba Fett that bothered me and maybe a lot of other people is that it was like Boba Fett for a long time has been a lot of people's favorite character, and he only was on screen for like 10 minutes. But the idea was that in your mind, like he's this.
The idea of him, like you were just saying, right? The idea of him was bigger than what he actually was.
So when he debuted on The Mandalorian, and they actually gave him like 10 minutes to be the Boba Fett you always knew he was gonna be, and then they immediately spun off to a show about Boba Fett. You assume you're gonna get Boba Fett right? And then they decide, like, well, sorry, buddy, this is actually just a means to our larger Thrawn
So,
story. Like, we're just setting him up here. Like, we
bro,
need a Daimo of Tatooine. Okay.
I am having an epiphany right here in the moment, bro. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for
Yeah.
this? I'm either gonna be completely off base or 100% on the target with this epiphany. But as you're talking, I'm listening to you. Is there a franchise that has gotten more from people's idea of where things go and where characters go without ever showing it than Star Wars? Luke's whole thing, right? After Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
People had it in their minds. They knew exactly what happened after the fact and where it would go, and that's why they were so disappointed when they saw what he became, or him becoming a hermit and all that kind of stuff, because they felt like they knew what it was. Vader, pre New Hope, we all had it in our minds what it was, and so the second we got it, a little bit of it in Rogue One, it was like, yeah, that's what we want. Boba Fett, cool suit. He's got to be a badass. I can see it in my mind. I can see it in the back of my mind. I know. I feel like Star Wars has gotten very far with like the vague allusion to people being cool without ever having to show it.
The whole thing about Star Wars is that George Lucas is so good at building a world that all of these little pieces that he uses to prop up his story, you're like, I want to know more about all of it. Like, I want to know more about the freaking bounty hunter who didn't say anything for 10 minutes. What's his deal? Like, I need to know what Luke did after these stories were done. Like, I need more.
The characters don't live and die by the story. Like, they exist and they breathe. This is just their, where they're inserted, and thus they've had a life prior to you first seeing them. They've done things because that's how the universe. Yeah, that's how they should feel. The universe should feel lived in, where it's like, everyone feels a part of it because they feel like real life persons, and that's hard to freaking do. So not only for George Lucas to do it at the time, but for him to trust Dave Filoni to do his own. We were just talking about characters originally created for a certain project. Your girl, Ahsoka Tano, right? That was created for that series.
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars. Was there any sort of pushback? Do you remember at the time? This is something. This again was a blind spot to me at a certain point. Do you remember the discourse at all around the character of Ahsoka Tano when you were watching it? And if you can't, can you remember how you personally felt watching this character?
Well, I want to get to that in a quick second, but when you mentioned how Star Wars has gotten a lot by having a world, like such a rich universe to be built in, I think one of the things that Dave Filoni is a master at is actually filling those lines, right? Actually,
not just putting question marks at the end of every sentence. Right? Actually, new world? Question mark. New species? Question mark.
Like taking a little piece of exposition from the film and turning it into something in the series. Like that's his expertise, basically. The dude did it in Clone Wars. He did it in Rebels. He did doing it in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Like his job is to weave in the little details. Like, I'll finish this stupid blanket. Like, you left a bunch of holes in it.
Yeah.
Like, that seems to be his Star Wars job. I'm going to fix your universe because you keep on leaving it.
Yeah, slightly mentioning things, but I'll bring them to prominence.
With Ahsoka, people hated Ahsoka. They hated Ahsoka.
Really?
With a passion.
Oh, I want to hear about this.
Well, you imagine you imagine Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars, and then you hear this idea.
He's the Joker, right? Like he's of that level of like.
He's gonna have the Padawan.
Edgy,
Anakin Skywalker is gonna have a Padawan. What? He's gonna train another Jedi. What? And it's like a plucky young, brash girl who doesn't listen. Like she doesn't give. She does not listen. She's messes things up. Her first season she's really bad at things, and then when she's given direction, she kind of goes against it, and people are just like, God, I hate this character. She's in the way of everything, not realizing like, oh, you're in for like the character arc of your life. You're gonna like for me personally, I thought it felt like she had the better version of Anakin Skywalker's arc, where he was the plucky, annoying teenager who was in the way, but she got hours and hours and hours and hours of development, and he only got to, get the little bit of stuff in the movies that was barely any development, which is why it felt weird when he went from that to Vader, because it's like, how the hell did we get here?
You brought up the idea of him having a Padawan and how people would end up taking to it, and then her being the plucky female, and we see now people just have almost a bone to pick with any choice ever, right? Any definitive choice to do anything ever. Here's something interesting. While you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if any of that opposition or negativity was in response to the very popular Force Awakens. Is it Force Awakens?
It would have
Force Unleashed. Force Unleashed, right?
Yeah, it would have been.
It comes out the same year.
Yeah.
It's the same year. They had their cake and ate it too.
But I feel like maybe not only do I feel like, but I also spent a lot of time watching those freaking Clone Wars behind the scenes featurettes. Ahsoka was her character was made in response to the way people felt about Anakin in the prequels. Okay.
Wow.
So it's like a direct
course correction.
Assault on your senses, because you already been here. You're getting PTSD now. Like,
yeah.
Oh no, they're doing it again. And Dave is like, another thing that they played on in the Clone Wars a lot. And like now Ahsoka's so popular that you can't even imagine. Like if you go back and watch Clone Wars, you won't think of it this way. But the idea was Anakin has a Padawan, but he didn't have a Padawan in the movies. So she's guaranteed to die. Right? She's guaranteed to die in the show. There's no way she makes it out. So a lot of the time they're teasing her death, and you are absolutely believing that it can happen because
at any point in time, because it does happen. It has to happen because by the time you get to Revenge of the Sith, is it?
Yeah, she's gone.
Yeah.
So it was keeping her alive was genius. Like, how did you? Good stuff. I can't believe that all of those stories are culminating or ended up leading to like
15-year anniversary this year, bro. 15-year anniversary. 15 years since the Clone Wars film, since Force Unleashed, which is also they're putting a bunch of stuff from that. 15 years since basically the new modern Star Wars.
It's just wild because I still remember it being canceled. I remember watching getting excited because Netflix was going to pull together some of the leftovers episodes that didn't have a home because their season got canceled. So Netflix was going to complete them and aired them, and it was called the Lost Season.
The Lost Season.
And to see that it became multiple live action TV shows and it's going to all culminate in a live action theatrical release. It's like, what the hell? It's a dream. I can't understand why people would complain.
That's a good point, because my next bullet point is about the split fandom currently. There have been people that have not necessarily taken to this season so well, and it's the first time, and I've seen it sprinkled, but it's the first time where I've seen outward slander against my man Grogu. Where they're like, he is strictly a marketing tactic, and with your, the way that you put that he could have almost not even been here. What do you have to say about the split fandom? Do you feel like at any point that this season was well paced, or any of the characterizations was off from previous seasons, or where you felt like some of the characters had nothing to do? How do you feel about? I mean, to be honest, as somebody who's been an outsider looking in, Star Wars has as much discourse as every other fandom about every other thing in the history of everything. So there's always going to be some people that are a bit more vocal about not digging what they dig. But did you feel any of this? Did you see any of this? Is there any validity to the Grogu slander, to the split fandom about this season in particular?
No. I can see where it comes from. I can see why they feel that way. Like we were just talking earlier, how it felt like he didn't have to be there until the end of the season. But it also didn't get in the way. Like I never felt like, get out of the way, Grogu. I need to see what Din and Bo-Katan are doing. Like it was what it was. He was Grogu. That's Din's son. He's there. We know where he is when he's not around. Like, we'll get to it when we get to it, and then we did get to it. Like it was got to.
It was got to. got.
If they were complaining more about like the Luke Skywalker, maybe you didn't feel like they were separated from Din Djarin enough to care about a reunion. If they were talking about things like that, maybe I'd actually give some credence to their complaints, but they don't seem to care. It's just like small things that they feel like they noticed, so they should bring it up so that they can appear like they have some sort of intellectual opinion they can add to the conversation. But
is there, as a fan of Star Wars? Oh, I think I just disconnected. Hey, can you hear me?
Oh, no, I'm here. All
right. As a fan of Star Wars, do you think that there are people that it's similar to like being fans of pro wrestling, have it booked in their mind already?
Oh no, absolutely, 1000%. There's a lot of the discourse around Star Wars is people mad that it didn't go the way they thought it.
They thought it was.
Yeah, like, oh well, I had this whole arc planned out in my head where Din Djarin would die. You know, like it's like no. Actually, we had the fucking most wholesome, beautiful ending you'll ever feel in your heart. Well, no, you see the arc in my brain. Nah, dog. I'm sorry.
With characters being introduced from shows like Rebels and Clone Wars, like Ahsoka Tano, similarly to the other thing I had asked about the Fantastic Four, are you in a position where you're like, as close as they can get, we're good? Or is there a bit more like, no, this person needs to do this, and this to be my version of that character?
It's not like it's an adaptation. You know, it's meant to be a continuation. You know, that's important. No, you're right. You're right 100%. Yeah.
So
if the characterization is off, then you've messed up. See, with the Kenobi show, the biggest issue I had with that show was the way the Grand Inquisitor looked.
Right.
And I understand, like, oh, you know, it can't look exactly like the animation. Like, I understand. Like, you've seen how Count Dooku looks in Clone Wars compared to, like, real life.
Yeah, that big ass head.
Like, you know, like the long chin and possibly long chin. But come on, like, he looked like a doof. It looked stupid.
Yeah.
It looked really stupid.
Yeah.
But like, you know, when Ahsoka came on The Mandalorian for the first time, and it's like the first time you ever see her in live action, and her things are too small and it makes her look like a teenager, but it was like a practical thing. It's like, you know what? It's fine. It's whatever. I understand. It's not the worst thing. It doesn't take away from how perfectly acted it was. How perfect everything else was. Everything else hit so hard.
When you talk about things hitting hard, like when I think of The Mandalorian, as somebody who likes Star Wars, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert by any means, I thought that one of the unique ways you can utilize shows like Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian was how they were able to, or even things like where they patched up an entire loophole with or a plot hole with Rogue One, right? Like, you can make it a whole film and be like, I'm just going to cover that one thing that people have an issue with and we're just going to cover it over. But like in doing that film, you get that awesome Vader scene, which I think is one of the best before Kenobi, right? Like one of the best
Yeah.
shows of his. Oh, sorry. Even what I think there's a bit of this in Rebels, right, where they show
Yeah.
his ability and skill. I think he holds back a. Does he hold back a Star Destroyer?
Maul does that in Clone Wars, but it's not a Star Destroyer. It's a
Okay.
regular. Oh no, freaking Vader pulls back that transporter ship in Kenobi.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, it's the scene taken right out of Force Unleashed.
Right. I guess that's what I'm thinking there. Force Unleashed. So get that, and come on, man. You had to have been a robot if you didn't pop for Luke in Mando season 2.
Oh yeah.
Like
that's a
dead
moment. That's
absolutely dead, right? Like
that was a different kind of moment. I think I always think about how masterful the reveal was, because it's one of those things where it's like
it plays on your knowledge.
It plays on your disbelief. It plays on you.
It can't be. That's bullshit.
Hey, get the fuck out of here! Like, no way. That's what it actually is. You just can't. You can't hold it in. That was special. I didn't want to come into season 3 thinking that we were gonna get another Luke Skywalker moment, because I think you can do that again and still never. It won't hit the same. Once you've opened the box, like anything's possible now. Like anybody can show up now. Okay, I understand. You've made me understand.
No, and like I said, even as somebody I don't see myself as completely well versed, I felt the gravitas in that moment, and it was expertly done. But this is a character that I knew. A character I didn't know was Bo-Katan. That's a character that you knew.
Oh, yeah.
How close do you feel is the characterization of this Bo-Katan to the one that you have been following through Rebels and such?
1-to-1, and it also helps that it's Katie Sackhoff, and it always has been. She was also she's always been Bo-Katan, so we were able to get the same actress to come over to live action.
Awesome.
From the second she showed up on the Mandalorian, even before she took the helmet off, when I saw those night owl markings, I was like, holy shit, they're doing this. I mean, her story, the Kryze family, her sister Satine, Obi-Wan's lover. It's the entire Mandalorian storyline that started in Clone Wars, and like seeing it culminate here, it's bananas.
I'm not, can you give me an abbreviated version of what brings Bo-Katan here at this moment in season 3 of Mandalorian?
Actually, I can. It's story time. No.
Hey, I'm with it.
Yeah, so Bo-Katan Kryze's family, she alluded to it on The Mandalorian, she's royalty. She would be a second princess, as her sister, Satine, the Duchess Satine, is she is a princess, and she becomes the ruler of Mandalore. And she decides that she wants to rule Mandalore as pacifists. They don't want to be a warrior race, because she believed that the hundreds and thousands of years of Mandalorian civil wars that destroyed their planet in the first place can stop. Bo-Katan actually joins a terrorist group and decides, no, we need to still be warriors.
So she's almost at that point, what's that called?
Villain.
Like but also like a fundamentalist. Like she, is by the book. So like at none of this point, like the whole bounty hunter thing just gets baked in later on, like with these Mandalorians.
Well, the idea is like, they created Boba Fett. He was nothing but a cool suit, and then they decided to say like he was from the planet Mandalore, and now
they're just really good at killing people, and they're so scattered that they're really good at hiring to kill people.
That's why you only see Boba Fett. But
but Bo-Katan.
This whole Bo-Katan thing, this whole Mandalorian thing on Clone Wars was their attempt to like erase all this stuff that people have written themselves. Let's create our own lore. That's where we're at with this Bo-Katan thing. That she had joined a terrorist group run by the dude's name is Pre Vizsla. He's a descendant of the chunky man.
Paz
Vizsla. Their ancestor created the Darksaber.
The Darksaber, 100%. It's in his family's name. Yeah, that's why he was beefing over it. Yeah.
So eventually, Pre Vizsla gets into a bad deal with Darth Maul, gets his head cut off. Darth Maul takes over Mandalore. and Bo-Katan decides, oh, I've gone too far. Like the dude I was here with is dead. This is not the Mandalorian way. Like this is not the way.
Does he have the Darksaber in this moment?
Yes. Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay.
Maul took the Darksaber, cut off Pre Vizsla's head with it, is the owner of the Darksaber, the ruler of Mandalore, for I guess a year or two.
Right.
So yeah, that's when Bo-Katan splits off and she decides to help Ahsoka take Maul down. And after that leaves Mandalore with a power vacuum because Maul's down, and Maul in his time.
So Bo doesn't instantly rise to that occasion in that instance.
No, because what happens?
Her being family or royalty or whatever.
What happens is Maul takes over Mandalore by strength, by just having the Darksaber, and uses it to kind of trap Obi-Wan because he really wants to kill Obi-Wan. Remember, Obi-Wan cut off his dick and balls.
Yeah. Like, my penis.
Like that's Maul's ultimate freaking goal. Like I need to kill Obi-Wan no matter what.
Right.
Like, his whole he took over an entire warrior race of people simply to destroy, to attract Obi-Wan to this situation, which he does so that he can kill his lover in front of his face. He kills Satine Kryze, Bo-Katan's sister, right in front of him. So yeah, she helps Ahsoka take him down, which leaves the Mandalore with a power vacuum, and that's where the Empire comes in. We'll help you. We're gonna send our clones to hold the planet down. Only 5 minutes later would Order 66 happen. So,
okay.
So yeah, Bo-Katan eventually does lead a rebellion against the Empire and Mandalore.
So she was in charge during the Night of 1,000 Tears, or?
Yes, she was.
Okay.
Which is really sad because she does lead that rebellion against the Empire, and that's what ends up getting Mandalore bombed.
That's their smack back. Like that's their they got smacked back for
that's how they happen. Yeah. And
so,
that's where she is now. Mandalore's been destroyed. She's lost access to the Darksaber. I guess. Is there
any ill will? Was anyone ever like you kind of did this? Like you kind of was there any doubt? I guess in her leadership is what I'm saying that leads up, because there's a bit of that here in the beginning of this. I feel like where she's kind of like the instant that they can walk away, they all walk away.
Well, part of the issue is that she didn't take the Darksaber from Darth Maul, right? He never lost it. He kind of dropped it, and 20 years later, Sabine Wren of the Rebels picked it up off the ground, and she gives it to Bo-Katan, who takes it and rules Mandalore, and then things go bad. So when Din Djarin tries to just give it to her, she's like, "I've been here before."
Okay,
happened to me, and it did not go well. The superstition might be correct. Maybe you keep that.
I think that's one of the most brilliant parts of what they've done with this whole. I don't necessarily like to call it the Mandoverse, but what they've done with
the Filoniverse.
The Filoniverse. It's like, we've sat here and laughed about the Jedi and what they believe and their customs and stuff. We spent now some time with Tusken Raiders, right? What they believe and 100% their customs and stuff. The Mandalorians, now it's all being fleshed out, and who's to say it's not a curse or whatever? If the Force is just something that is in the universe and people will have the ability to tap into and use and wield and all that kind of stuff, then like I can't tell you guys that you guys are wrong and these guys are right.
I actually think it's pretty cool that that moment in the end of season 2 was kind of a tease for her whole journey in season 3. Because in season 2, she kind of tells Din Djarin, like, man, all that shit is bullshit, man. All them curses, all that stupid helmet shit. And then when he tries to give it a Darksaber, she's like, you know what? Maybe that one's a real curse, right. Which is her crisis of faith in all of season 3. Like, I believed all this was bullshit, but then I saw the mythosaur. Like, I saw Jesus Christ.
I know, 100%. As somebody, like I said, who's not too versed, it was a bit discerning seeing her so dejected without any sort of army, without any sort of people. Was this something with you knowing who she was, where you're like, oh no, she's gonna bounce back? Is it already written in stone, her future in this universe?
No, I didn't think, because like, you know, she's been through a lot. Like, she's been through a lot. I thought I would entirely understand if she was like, you know what, I'm gonna go to bed. Like, I'm gonna take a nap and I'm gonna eat ice cream. Like, I don't want to do anything right now. Right. I thought it was more funny that I know maybe whenever you see a male and a female character together on screen for more than 2 minutes, it's like, well, they should be an item.
Right.
But I thought it was genuinely funny how she acted like, you know, get out of my house, Din Djarin. I don't want you here.
Yeah.
And, you know, he goes and his jet comes and she's like, I'm going to tell him to get out of here once and for all. And then she goes out and her idea of that is like, leave me alone.
Right.
As soon as she finds out he's in danger, she's like, I'll be right back.
Wait, Yogi, are you shipping Bo-Katan and Din Djarin right here on this podcast?
Not only am I shipping them, I need Bo-Katan to be Grogu's mom. Okay, I don't know what you call that kind of ship.
Right.
But I need this to be a family unit, as it has been for the past 8 episodes.
That's one hell of a what do you call that? Almost a recommendation of these new characters that were created for this show, right? Grogu and Din Djarin, right? To feel like everything just fits in that universe. That's got to be a pretty cool feeling.
I think that's one of the things I love about The Mandalorian more than anything is like it's just Clone Wars. Like, it's just like, you think this is good? You should have seen it 15 years ago.
Right. I get that on occasion. I get that on occasion with other stuff. I'm like, yeah, this is what it is. I'm glad that you're being spoon fed it now, but it's like, always been this. It's always been good. Have
it now. Like at one point, just a few years ago, nobody knew what a Mandalorian was. Nobody knew what a Mandalorian was, but this is a concept that's like 40 years old. You know, right. People have been, there's a girl on my Instagram whose name has been Mandalorian Princess since like the beginning of Instagram.
Right.
You know, and I'm sure nowadays people see it and they think it's something she got from the show, but like, sure, like, no, this is a very old concept. So it's just cool bringing everybody in on it. That's what I like most. That's what I want an adaptation or a continuation to be. Like, I want to bring people in on the thing I've been enjoying. Like, come on in.
But it ends up being that, you know, situation that I talk about often on this podcast, where, you know, you will hear people on occasion who are not too versed with any kind of source material of anything, because this has its own source material, with it being, like you said, Rebels and stuff. They'll say like, why do you guys so, you know, adamant about basically one-to-one adaptations, as you're saying? And to me, I always equated it to someone telling a joke. Like, if you hear a good joke, you know, you're on your ass. And then, like, to hear that same person tell that joke again, but get it wrong, or, you know, get the timing wrong, or, you know, say the wrong thing. And then other people are like, oh, that joke was whack. It's like, no, it didn't do it right. You don't get it. Like, cause they didn't, you know, set the situation right. I got to deal with things like that with Cassandra Cain. Right. Yeah. Like, that's what that character was to people. Look at the irreparable damage Batman and Robin did to the Robin character, right?
We haven't seen him like on screen since.
It's just been that. So, I think they've done a great job putting some of these people on screen. I think The Mandalorian in the beginning, season 1, I think works very well for it not having a lot of lore. Yeah. I think if you would have started as heavy as it is currently, you might have detracted some people.
Yeah, you confuse them. You kind of got to ease them in. You have to. I think one of the things they do best is easing people into the Star Wars lore. And I think that might be the whole driving force of the show, like the mission statement.
So you're saying Mando and Grogu are the Pied Piper into the depths of the abyss that is Star Wars lore?
It's a Trojan horse. You get tricked with a cute little baby, and then 2 months later, you're like, I've watched 108 episodes of Clone Wars now, and I know every song of Mandalore. I now it's time for Rebels.
Was there any opposition from you about the Grogu character at all?
No, I think the way they did it was masterful. Because if you reveal a character like Grogu as just a design on a sheet 6 months before a TV show.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah,
you're gonna spend 6 months hating the idea.
You make up your own mind about it. You've written your own lore.
Yeah. He's gonna be Jar Jar. George Lucas said they're not supposed to know who the Yodas are. What are they gonna do? They're ruining it. And people would not even give it a chance. They would hate it from the outside after the people. They wouldn't even watch the first episode and still hate it. Hate what they heard about it. Hate what they read about it. Taking this and just giving no details about nothing ever. That's just the best way to do things. They were like, oh, Jon Favreau's making a show called The Mandalorian. It's about a gunslinging Mandalorian.
Right.
That's it. That's what you knew going into the show. Right. That was it. The trailer came out. It was cut from like the first 2 episodes, and it was just images of Mando shooting at people.
Yeah.
You go in and they give you the story. Now you're here. Let me sit.
I think they also showed Werner Herzog, right? They might have showed his ass, his old ass.
And now you're tricked.
I need you to get me the asset.
Show me the baby.
But you get that moment where he has his finger out, right?
Yeah,
at the bassinet.
The asset is 50 years old, and you spend the whole episode waiting for an old man, and he opens it, and it's a baby Yoda. It's a baby Yoda. What the fuck? That, funnily enough, that's almost the same thing they did in the Clone Wars movie way back in 2008, right? The asset. It's
a baby Jabba.
It's a baby Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, baby Jabba.
Which, by the way, where's Stinky? Like, I need an update. We're getting updates on all these characters nowadays. In
where's the Stinky cameo?
Where is Stinky the Hutt? I don't want to hear no more bullshit, Filoni. I need Stinky the Hutt in your live action film. I don't want to play no games. Hashtag where's Stinky?
I had probably heard about because like as soon as the episode dropped, people were raving about Baby Yoda. So I hadn't even seen the episode yet, and that's all people were talking about. But I didn't understand what it would mean in the context of the episode or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. Watching it unfold as it has, sometimes I'm digging it. Sometimes I'm always digging it, to be honest. But sometimes I'm not expecting it to progress. I just think the relationship is what it is, right? So like when they teased the whole him going with Luke for a second, I'm like, wait a minute, that's like the show. And then I'm like, but should that be the show, right? Because if it's the Mandalorian, should I have an issue with Grogu being gone? Like that there should be nothing wrong with that. The character should be able to stand on its own. But then when I didn't have to make the decision, I'm like, okay, cool. So, Grogu is part of this whole Mandalorian thing. Basically, that's one of the other parts of Book of Boba Fett is he chooses to be a Mandalorian in that moment, right? Yeah. He gets literally those options. And again, with the Jedi being the golden class of what people see in, mainstream with the Star Wars universe, to have a character be like, nah, screw that. I want to hang out with the Mandalorians. That puts them higher in the food chain. What do you think about that?
I think we're meant to want him and Mando to be together. Like, we're meant to want that. We don't want them separate. I think the idea that they were teasing that they would break up, I think it breaks Mando's heart and it breaks yours. It's like, get him back. Like, go get your son. That's your son.
That's why it had to be Luke doing it, right? Because if it was anybody else, they would have booed him out of the building.
Like, I get the fuck. This guy's an asshole. Which made me, by the way, like, Luke is an asshole too. Like, you can either be a Jedi or a Mandalorian. You stupid dick.
I'm out.
I don't think you thought it was going to go that way, did you?
Not only am I out, I'm going to take the Force with me, and I'm gonna go into immediate danger over at Tatooine.
I'm gonna start a school. The first
That's-
student he gets decides I want to leave. I don't like it here.
Grogu was an immediate hit. You know what wasn't an immediate hit? That spy episode. I feel like that was the earthquake that split the fandom into.
They already had. They were already weird because I've been the common thing I saw, which I thought was crazy. It was like, yo, the Mandalorian has had no forward momentum. They're not pushing the plot forward. And I thought to myself, we have already rebaptized Din Djarin like in the first episode. The Mythosaur collected the fucking covert. We baptized Bo-Katan. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What do you mean no forward momentum? Like, is it because you can't? Is it because they're not? And maybe it's like the same thing as like what's happening in the MCU, where it's like they're not. If you can't see the end,
or they're not end gaming all the time.
You can't. If you're not aware of the path, then you're confused. Why did we take a break? Well, this must be filler. We went away from Mando. Why are we dealing with the New Republic? What could this possibly have to do with the story that we're telling right now?
This one episode could have repercussions throughout the entirety of the universe that they're setting up for the eventual film, right? That's supposed to culminate in all this. Which it does. No, I mean, I'm talking about potentially. Like, no, there's this whole cloning situation, all this stuff. I guess this is the time to talk about it. Moff Gideon is not dead. He's here. He's back. He's ready. He was originally thought to be sent over to go to trial for his crimes against the New Republic, but escaped, quote unquote, and has been using spies to kind of do his bidding. And one of the things that we find out through not only a conversation with him and other people that are creating what I am believing to be what a precursor to what the First Order is.
See, I thought that was so interesting because the idea was for the entire show, the idea was, and they even call them Imperial remnants. They're remnants of an empire.
What's left over.
But then you find out, like, there is no remnants. It is simply the empire at full power. They never lost anything. They were the only thing they lost was Palpatine. Like it's still a fully operational empire. Like so it's like holy shit.
I think it's very easy because of how close we are to the literal main characters of the entire Rebel versus Empire, the Star Wars, right? Because we're so close to that stuff, it's really hard to kind of pull back and be like, well, for every planet that the Empire is in control over, there's a litany of officers and security and stormtroopers, and like there are competent people doing their job well all across the galaxy. We're talking about a galaxy. So there's so many people. So if that empire were to topple overnight, like we saw remnants of Nazi Germany, we hired scientists from Nazi Germany, Operation Paperclip, which is very similar to what they were trying to show with this whole like rehabilitation of the empire. We hired them and they were from another country. Planets of these people, right? Like planet, overseeing planets worth, not obviously a planet's population worth, but I'm saying like across the galaxy are these sects of people who only I've ever known working for the Empire and being in control and you know, orders and such. And you've really got to see here what happens when all that stuff falls and how people can fall through the cracks. I thought, the whole Empire Remnants thing, to see was it Hux? Hux's brother or father?
Hux's
Sorry,
father, yeah, played by
Daddy
his
Hux.
brother.
Daddy, that's what it was. That's why I got it tied in my head. Daddy Hux, played by, because the first Hux we see is Armitage Hux. I
Yeah.
will never forget that because what a name.
Yeah, his mother doesn't love him.
Armitage. Army?
Armitage,
What's that? What's the nickname? Army?
Army.
Hey, Army? 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 Armitage Hux. His father we see here, and seeing that and them talking about the cloning stuff, can only lead me to believe that this is supposed to be allusions to what would eventually become of Snoke at some point. I'm believing. Am I off?
So he says, because in the beginning of the whole series, we're teased with cloning process. We see Dr. Pershing, and he's got the logo of the Kaminoans who made the clones way back in the Clone Wars, and you think to yourself, well, this has to do with Palpatine for sure, because
Right.
we know that this is leading to the First Order or whatever. So then we come out and we see Hux, Daddy Hux Senior. He comes out and he says, I'm working on Project Necromancer, and
Right.
and all of a sudden, Gideon
Which
is acting
which the actual title alludes to bringing something back from the dead.
And then all of a sudden, Gideon is like, clones? I don't know nothing about clones. And now if you grabbed it, you realize, like, wait a minute. He absolutely was doing clone stuff. Like, so why?
Why are you lying about it? Yeah.
Yeah, and they reveal it pretty quickly. Like, the Palpatine thing is over here. You were wrong all along. Like, this is its own thing. Which, by the way, that scene, it I got a feeling that by itself was written by Dave Filoni, because like the entire season was written by Jon Favreau, except for that episode.
That scene, I'll tell you this about it, right? I really liked it, but as somebody who writes, that scene was possibly the most exposition dense scene in the season, besides the other, like, which was also adorable. It'd be like Mandalorian being like, yeah, Mandalore was bombed and everyone died, and then the whole planet turned to glass, and then you hear whoo, hear "coo" from Goku. But like, in that moment, they managed to tie every single thing you had seen, every single thing you had a question about, and every single thing you might want to speculate in the future in that one scene of Gideon walking in and talking to everybody that was there. And I was like, somebody was like, either people are getting mad or we just need to put this shit out there so that people understand that we do know where this is going. There isn't, this is not all for naught.
Well, I think that's one of the things. I don't think it was like reactionary at all. I feel like that.
No, they might have read the whole season, right?
That was just Filoni doing his thing. Like, this is tying it all together now. Like, okay, you thought it was singular adventures, but give me a second and watch this. It's like, oh, fuck. You're right. Bitch. You put it together.
Not only is it tying it together, but what I think you're alluding to is it's stretching further.
Oh yeah.
Than people thought it was initially. People were wondering why these little things in the distance weren't connecting. And now we're realizing they're talking about things like Thrawn, right? Which is bigger in concept than our little pulp fiction-y, right? Cowboy Western situation here. That goes a bit further. Ahsoka cloning the First Order, all of that stuff. Like, there's no reason to have believed that the first season of Mandalorian will have anything to do with the rise of the First Order.
Yeah,
he could have done the entire series without it. It really doesn't matter. So, like you were just saying, like, the people that were impatient that things didn't connect, the reveal is that not only does it connect, but it goes further. This whole entire thing is tied in way further than people believe.
I loved it. I love it. I love it. I'm just watching them build this universe, and it goes back to, like, if you were a freaking nerd like me and you're paying attention to every single news article, then you've seen it come together. Like, you've seen Favreau's interview in season 1 before the show ever came out. Like, he said the show would be connecting the original trilogy to the sequel. That was their purpose. And that, like, immediately when they do the thing and they say, "Oh, 5 years after the fall of the Empire," my mind is like, "Oh, that's the same time as the Empire. That's the same time as the end of Rebels. What is going on here? What are they doing?"
Right.
I've been waiting for another foot to drop for a while. Okay,
was any of this stuff on your bucket list?
Yeah,
well, not bucket list, but you know what I'm saying, like
it
wish list, really, I guess.
Not even wish list. It was just easy to see. If you knew what to look for, it was very easy to see that all this was coming. The biggest giveaway for me was that the show started at the end of Rebels. Star Wars Rebels, if you don't know, it ends with a massive cliffhanger. Like, for some reason, and you can even imagine, like, why would you end a series, an entire series, with a cliffhanger like that? Like,
so they've owed some of you this.
Yeah, like, that's a big ass deal for, like, what? It's one of those things where you just expect, I guess they'll make another cartoon at some point. There'll be a Rebels 2. And it just never came. And then the Mandalorian gets announced and Dave Filoni's involved, and they're like, "Oh, it begins 5 years after the fall of the Empire." And all of a sudden, in my mind, I'm like, "Hold on a minute. Let me check my calendar." Like, I remember this date. And then, the first season goes by and nothing really comes of it. And then the Darksaber shows up at the end of this. And now it's connected to Rebels again. What the fuck?
Wow. It had been a big moment.
Yeah, so it's like we're gonna get this Thrawn thing, aren't we? Like, we're gonna find Ezra. This is about to be some shit. And of course, Ahsoka confirms it in her episode of season 2. Like, what the fuck? This is happening.
So I guess those are my two questions. How do you feel about Moff Gideon, and what should we, the newbies, be worried about when it comes to Thrawn?
Grand Admiral Thrawn is possibly one of the greatest strategic minds in, like, fiction. Like, he is not, they say people are like steps ahead of you. Like, he's the personification of being steps ahead of you. I would not be surprised if he knew what Moff Gideon was up to all this time. He knows Moff Gideon wants his seat in as the heir of the Empire. I absolutely said yes. Give him the freaking guards and let him think that he can take on the Mandalorians and let the Mandalorians take care of him. Right. That's the kind of thinker that Thrawn is. Thrawn, in an empire that's racist against aliens, rose to one of the highest seats in the entire empire. Okay?
You're right.
Simply because of his strategic mind. This is somebody to be scared of. Like, they don't have that. The Republic does not have a mind like that. Not a single nobody. They don't have anybody like that.
They seemingly can't get anything together. Whenever they show those people, any of them on, they seemingly can't get anything on the same page.
So, so him coming back, which, if I don't want to spoil the cliffhanger for Rebels, because I feel like that's something.
Okay, so I
definitely go back and.
I guess what I was going to ask, and it's a simple yes or no question: is his fate already sealed somewhere in lore, somewhere in canon, Thrawn's?
No, but the fate of the Empire is. We know that the Empire will not fall here. They will not lose, and they will become the First Order.
But we also know we don't see Thrawn in the First Order.
Yeah, so there's probably a.
So it's the Ahsoka situation, where it's like somewhere along the lines. Okay. Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily have to be right in this. I just want to talk about Paz Vizsla for a bit. I just feel like he needs a little corner of this conversation. My man threw a lot since Boba season 2.
Yeah. Through here. Got his great grandpa's sword taken.
He got his ass kicked.
Got his ass beat.
He got his son taken.
It's a little rough.
Almost fed to some crazy alien birds. Got his son back. Got his son's ass whooped by Din Djarin's son.
Wow, that's right. That's right. Fuck.
I just want people to know I see you. You know what I'm saying, bro?
He was one of my favorite Mandalorians on this show. I mean, even though he was a little bit of a dickhead, douchebag. I don't know. I just love me some thick representation. Damn it, that was a big boy Mando, and I was like, I can see myself in that outfit.
This is probably an easy answer. What do you say to those who say that The Mandalorian loses some steam when there's 20 Mandalorians on screen?
That's fucking dumb. I can't even. The Mandalorian is not even like. I'm pretty certain that doesn't even refer to like one Mandalorian. I think the idea.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
maybe Grogu's been the Mandalorian the whole time.
I mean, he is. He is a Mandalorian now. I mean, and he's probably the only one who will outlive everyone else we've ever seen on screen, and we've
passed the religion on, man.
Yeah,
and he's seen like the hardcore stuff too.
Yeah, the Grogu. Okay, like when everyone is dead, there's a couple of things that have been set up here. Like, I don't think Grogu's story is something that's exclusive to the Mandalorian. Or even this era of storytelling. What do you think about Mandalore? Similarly, you think Mandalore is something that they only ever deal with in? No, I don't know. Well, the thing about Mandalore is that's kind of like the conclusion. Is that in its own? The conclusion of this season has been a long time coming. Like that's been set. We've needed this resolution since for the last 15 years, right? Okay, right. But the Grogu thing is a lot different. I feel like that's the future of Star Wars more than it is Mandalorian. Because one, I mean, for what other purpose would you introduce a baby that lives 1,000 years? you're kind of right about that. Because if any of this sequel stuff doesn't work, we'll just be like, well, and once everyone died, Grogu showed back up. And now Grogu is Yoda's age. But they've set, even throughout the show, like they've set little things that like they've planted the littlest seeds. Like the Lizzo thing was seen as like a throwaway joke. Like, oh, the baby was playing with me on this beautiful paradise planet, but then we offered them a home. Oh, they got into and I knighted him. This is a knight. Grogu's a knight in this planet. At any point in the next 1,000 years, we can pluck fruit from that tree. And you're right. Every contact that Din Djarin has, Grogu has. Right. Technically, he's met them all. The mechanics, right? I mean, it starts to get mythical after a certain point. If he lives 1,000 years, you're talking about a point where, like, 100 years from now, Grogu will be the only Mandalorian who was there when we retook our planet. There you say he would become the Mandalorian. Oh, the Mandalore. The leader of Mandalore. Yeah. I mean, you can see it. There's no reason in the world why you can't. Why Grogu's story would end in this show within this small lifetime of a regular person. One of the things I thought was interesting was that this season finale felt almost like a series finale. Oh man, when it was over, I was like, did we just watch the end of this show? They closed everything. If it was, would you have been okay with that? Yeah, hell yeah. I would have been. Yeah? If they would have announced it on Saturday morning, like, surprise, that was actually the series finale, like, I would have been okay with it. 24 episodes. We concluded the story of Mandalore that started in Clone Wars with that. It was like a Mandalorian civil war in live action. Like, we get to see all of these insane Mandalorian things that you could you've never imagined you would. An actual mythosaur. You got all the way to that point where you saw the fucking mythosaur. Short of Grogu riding that thing, We freaking saw everything we needed to see out of this show from everything that they've set up from season
Right.
one. Even and I think that ending the show like that, ending this season with such a clean note and even on a wholesome level was subversive in itself. Because we've led this far with every season has ended with like some messed up cliffhanger. Like we
Right.
beat Moff Gideon, but he's got the dark saber. We beat Moff Gideon again, but they took my baby.
Yeah.
This time we beat him for good.
Maybe not. Yeah. Yeah. But then we
maybe
also
not.
get, yeah. But I'll tell you this. I was watching that finale, and remember, like one of the scuttlebutt things was like it's gonna hurt, right? That's what everyone was saying.
Yeah.
Like the finale is gonna bring some pain. So I'm looking for any kind of death. There was an instance in which Grogu is surrounded by the Praetorian guards. Am I saying that right?
Yep. Yeah.
And the door closes, and I'm like, they better not.
Yeah.
And then it kind of turns into like a sitcom, kind of like keep away situation.
He's laughing. He's running around laughing.
But when the door first closed, I said, oh, because we just saw him take out Paz Vizsla.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. There was like no way Grogu's gonna beat these babies.
I was like, oh my God. But okay, so when he got past that, I was like, that was a bit, cutesy. And when they do the force field, when he does the force fields to save them, I thought that was also a bit cutesy. But I got choked up. And if you've watched this show and you didn't, I got absolutely choked up, chills, whatever you want to call it. All the blood rushed somewhere when they called him Din Grogu.
Yeah.
When they said that felt like a moment. That felt like the entire Star Wars universe has decided that this is a character that will be something of prominence, something of note. The entire moment felt like we've earned it for the extension of this. There was all the jokes about father and son, right? There were all the jokes about the relationship between Mando and Grogu to culminate in this moment. What did you think about the whole, baptism and adoption of Grogu by Din Djarin, and basically everything that went in with the conversation with the armorer?
I thought I actually thought they were gonna die. I don't know if they were gonna die, but when Axe Wolves is like kamikazing the man,
he's like, I'm just gonna go
into the hole, and everyone's leaving, and they haven't left yet. I'm just like, what is about to happen? Like, what is about to happen here? Like, so and the force field thing, because I watched Rebels, it was a big old reference, and I was just like,
fair.
I was just like, yeah, I was gonna cry. I was like, God damn, how could you do this to me? But the baptism, the armor is funny because she has her own ideas of what you're supposed to do, but she won't ever tell you what you're supposed to do. She almost wants you to say it. I will guide you to the answer, but if you don't drink, like, that's on you. But she's like taunting Din Djarin, like they baptized the one baby, and he's like, now wet my baby, and she's like, no, I can't wet him. His parents aren't,
can't even talk,
might be dead, who knows? No parents, can't talk. That's so sad.
You know what, I think that's the reason why I almost got emotional in this moment, because with my mind being familiar with the way that the Mandalorian is written, that would have been the moment where he goes, so then I'm gonna find his parents.
Yeah,
you understand? And then the next season is them finding Grogu's parents. So I was like, oh well, they've done set it up. He's got to get permission from his parents, like they're getting married. It's all right there. And when he's like, nah, screw it, then I'm just adopting him with no permission from anybody.
I loved it.
Yeah, man. I was like, wow. And then when Din Grogu, I was like, we out here. I'm getting it. I was all about it. Super cool. Um, so what does this all spell for the future with stuff? Because everything as we've seen it, like there's nothing right disruptive. There's not everyone seemingly happy. Um,
Well, the biggest thing is that they, as happy as they might be and as nice as it might seem, there is a much larger looming threat. Like it's not over. Like as Mando went, he now works for the Republic. He's put himself right in the front of Thrawn's path.
yeah.
The thing about Grand Admiral Thrawn, and I get it's a bit of a spoiler, a little bit. They Star Wars Rebels sets him up from about the third season on to the end of the series. And
Okay.
they leave him in a place where he is wholly and entirely defeated. Done. He's been taken care of. So this idea that there's gonna be some grand return and that it almost seems like I you need maybe it's not.
It's like bringing back Thanos. Like if you're gonna bring him back, he's got to do something. You're bringing if you're bringing back that heavy gun,
Yeah.
he's got to have motive. He's here for a reason. What's going on here?
I mean, I'll never not come in them for somehow balancing this. Like, cause it's freaking nuts. How
Yeah, it
you
is.
can be Ahsoka is about to basically just be season 5 of Star Wars Rebels. Like,
Yeah.
and people are gonna watch
In
it
live action.
and understand it entirely. Like they're expected to just know, and somehow they will because Dave Filoni's freaking good at it. So yeah, the Thrawn thing is looming and it's coming, and no matter what Mando might feel, he's got that shit to deal with.
I always said, because I had a coworker say, "Oh, it sucks. It seems like, the seasons are so far apart, whatever." I was like, they should do some like I Am Groot-esque shorts with Mando and Grogu on their, multi-planet bounty hunter working for the New Republic, deal. Because that's how this ends, right? They make a deal with the New Republic to off the books, bounty hunt for them.
Yeah, basically, I'll do what you need me to do, and you pay me so that I can give my son some training because he's got to learn how to fight.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, should we be worried or like looking out because of how expansive this chapter is going to be with, we have the Acolyte, we have a bunch of other shows coming in. Should we be seeing or be on the lookout for a Snoke, a Kylo Ren, a Knights of Ren, or is that like?
There's a weird thing in Star Wars, and I wouldn't call it not like a big political split or whatever, but there's some stuff. There's different divisions of story going on right now. Like not everything is connected at all. In a way, like they have the Filoni movie, like a singular Dave Filoni film that's meant to wrap up all this stuff going on in his world. So you get that one movie, and then the only other announced thing that's connected to that is Ahsoka. So I think the only place where you would want to look for that first order connection would be these Filoni things, because in the Acolyte, more than likely, most of the connections are going to be to the first that High Republic stuff that I have not tried myself yet. And I got no issue with it. It's just, it's been removed for a long, like it's very removed from anything that I'm actually paying attention to or caring about right now. So I haven't urged, it's just no urge for me to start it. But I know that the people that have started it, they do enjoy that era and those characters. And Acolyte is supposed to be the first instance of a show using that. And it's the stupidest thing because then they're like, oh, we're 100 years removed from. So like, what the fuck did you like? So
Right,
so you created a whole fucking era, and then some asshole comes in and they say, "Well, I want to be removed so far that I'm kind of still there, but I can tell my own story." Get the fuck back in the water and swim like everybody else, man. Get back over there.
I was gonna say, we were talking about rehabilitation and how these shows and this expansive universe that Dave Filoni's not creating in live action can sort of cover up these plot holes. Where do you see the events or the perceived events of like movies like Solo being rehabilitated at? Do you think that they drop all those threads, or are we gonna see Kira and find out where some of that stuff's happening at?
I think with the Kira in specific, the comics have taken
handled that.
They
does he trip and fall and die?
That usually means they actually gave her a whole story where she takes over. Because I told you earlier how Darth Maul took over Mandalore, but
right,
in the process of doing that, he and the Mandalorians killed the leaders of the crime underworld and put their groups together and created a crime syndicate. And Kira in the comics takes it over after Maul disappears,
right,
and then dies.
He goes to fight Obi-Wan, and
there's a lot, but eventually he does go fight Obi-Wan, and he gets got, and fucking Kira takes over, and she's the Crimson Dawn, and she's got this whole cool arc in the comics, which tells me that someone asked for her and they were like, yeah, we got no fucking plans for Kira. You can do whatever you want with her. Like,
yeah. So could she be around? You think she's still up to no good, or what?
Well, I was going to say, they told Lando Calrissian, they told, what's his name? Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, that they were going to make a Lando show, and then they announced it. So that would be a connection to Solo right there, but with no Filoni involved in it. That's why, like, my thing is, like, I get this big connection, like, because if Disney's Star Wars canon, right? They bought Star Wars, right? And then all the EU confusing stuff, they kind of put it to the side and they said, we'll pick and choose from it. Like, we'll adapt whatever we have from it. But the canon is the movies, the shows, and that's it. So I've seen it all, and I just love that I'm being paid off. Like, I'm just here.
It feels like the films and the shows are like a 1950s couple, where the films just go to work and come home and bring home the money and then go to bed. And the mom is home all day, feeding the kids, washing the clothes, doing all the work. Like, Dave Filoni is going to be connecting all the dots for these films that they're just going to be dropping, hoping to, make a buck or, expand the universe, etc. and so forth. But the one who's actually going to do the homework, the one that's actually going to make these stuff make sense, as we're going to see, where I feel like this is going to rehabilitate in people's eyes the sequel trilogy. I'm almost certain it was created almost for that very end.
Hey,
a challenge. It was a dare. It was a challenge.
My thing is like, I've seen him do it. Like, I saw him do it. He made me care about the prequels. Like, I will watch the prequels simply because I love all those characters from Clone Wars. Like, they can do that. And my biggest problem with the sequel trilogy was a disconnection from the lore. Right? There's no Mandalorians. There's none of the fucking Jedi shit. We went right back to the same story that we told. Like, so wait a minute. You mean to tell me that the Empire is alive again? Like, what is this garbage? Being able to take that and stitch it together and connect it back to the original trilogy, if they can do that in a way that actually makes you want to watch the sequels, I am down. I don't understand why people are they have to erase it. Like, do you
see? Okay, so I here's a question: with your understanding of Mandalore and the Mandalorians, do you see a world where Mandalore is run by the Empire?
No,
the First Order. I mean, the First Order.
No, that would be like going back to the well again. Like, that would be really weird, whack. Because like, they already did the entire arc. We just ended it. That was the big battle. Like, we've taken it from the Empire. It's done. We cannot do this again. This was lame.
They did the whole First Order again. I do like that.
And the point is to fix it. Like, we're here to fix it. You don't want to make the same mistake.
I thought Din getting his little hermit hut at the end with Grogu was kind of sweet. He was torturing frogs against their will with the Force.
Yeah, he's still a little piece of shit.
Yeah, he still likes to do that shit.
I like that they've set up, like, because the thing about the Throne and the Battle Against the Empire is that they are not only going to be, they're not going to be able to be like the Avengers, right? Ahsoka and Din Djarin and Bo-Katan and Boba Fett.
I don't not know that, bro.
Right?
I don't not know that. Well, who else is showing up for this?
Because they can't, right? Because they're not capable of it. Because we've seen it. Like, they're not capable of taking on the Empire on their own. They're capable of being good parts of a rebellion, good parts of a big group. They've set up Din Djarin. He has Navarro. He's got the Mandalorians.
Yeah.
Ahsoka's got the Rebels.
Yeah.
Boba Fett is the king of the crime in Tatooine. They've got a little
more personal liberations.
Yeah, like
as opposed to tackling the entire empire.
Yeah,
they're able to protect okay.
Well, they're creating, and maybe not on purpose, but I don't know. Well, the writers are creating it on purpose, but the characters unknowingly are creating themselves a little force, a little army, not a rebellion, because they don't need to rebel against anything, but a little strike force that will be able to stand up against Thrawn in the event that the New Republic decides, much like they did with Navarro. Oh man, this Empire threat isn't real. We saw Thrawn go down in our archival footage. Right. We don't need to send any reinforcements.
Open and shut case.
Right. And then, that's why they get destroyed. Like, that's why you get taken over. Because I can see it. I mean, in my mind, listen, I said it. I read that interview way back when. They freaking spelled it out for us. They said it's the show that's going to connect the sequels to the prequels, or the sequels to the originals. And in 2027, there's going to be we're going to end it all with some kind of event. And it's like, that has gone under the radar for so long. And now,
and now, like you said, as a Star Wars celebration, they've been talking more about, right?
Oh no, it's official now. It's a big deal.
There's a Dave Filoni movie.
Yeah, now it's like, it's a film. It's in theaters. I'm writing it. I'm bringing the cowboy hat.
Is it in theaters? Are they going to do it in theaters?
It's a theatrical film.
Oh, I thought it was like a Disney Plus film.
If it's a Disney Plus film, it's basically, it's just a long ass episode of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, it's a couple of episodes. Yeah.
Thanks for the double size. But
if it's a theatrical film, that could be pretty promising.
Yeah, it is. That's what's wild. Like, that's crazy to me. But at the same time, it all started with a theatrical film, the Clone Wars movie.
Right, and it was well deserved. Every single piece of responsibility that Dave Filoni's been given, he's knocked it out of the park. So who's to say he couldn't do this?
He's been growing. He's been kind of like a seed, another seed, just growing from under George Lucas's wing to becoming big and just kind of becoming George Lucas's mole. Like, now you're all that I have left. So you are the one to keep the flame growing. And then he said it himself. He was on the set of The Last Jedi behind Rian Johnson, just kind of taking notes and trying to learn how to do live action shit. And then, of course, now he gets John Favreau.
It's weird. Even if he was a clone of George Lucas, what he has that George doesn't have is an unapologetic love for Star Wars.
And a heart.
That's what I'm saying, right? And in a place because when I create stuff, I can only like it to a point, right? Because I know I made it. I could have done it this way. I could have done it this way. It's a whole nother thing. But if you're a fan and you unapologetically love something, you see it and you love it through its flaws. And even if he was a clone, Dave can have that sort of love that George doesn't. That's pretty damn interesting.
It's very interesting, and you can see it in the writing, though. The thing I always say about Dave Filoni, wow, I just saw the most clear lightning strike I've ever seen in my life.
Oh no,
that was horrifying.
He's sending.
I made a mistake.
The Death Troopers are coming. You're exposing.
I shouldn't say anymore. No, I think the thing about Dave Filoni's writing that you can see immediately is that it's a lot more empathetic, heartfelt. I think
Yeah,
George's stuff that he writes can come across as cold and emotionless. And
right,
it's like he's so good at building the world and building the universe, and not always the best at writing down, like getting the characterization out through writing.
right.
It sometimes comes across better when you read about a person. Like, oh man, that character sounds really cool. Then when you hear them talk after Lucas, then you're like, that was like some weird Shakespeare shit.
No, you're right because of the Clone Wars that I've seen. The interpersonal relationships are all right up front. Everyone has, they talk to each other differently. They have slang, they have, attitude and stuff, but you got none of that in the prequels. Like the Anakin that I watched, had more personality and, like you got to see all
Yeah.
kinds of facets of him. Whereas in the film, you got this like truncated version, and I get that you can't spend all the time in the world with him, but it's I was gonna say it's almost like, but you've already confirmed that it's almost an apology for the lack of depth everywhere else.
I always say like Clone Wars. Having watched Clone Wars and having seen Anakin at his best, like just caring and just loving his friends and being there to help the galaxy, it makes the Vader thing so much more tragic. Like more
Right.
than like you just get mad at him for being dumb in the movie, but in Clone Wars, you're just like, this guy,
I
this
think
guy.
it's weird. I think you almost spend so much time with him, you almost forget.
Yeah, you
Like
do.
you almost like are like, like, oh, you kind of forget, and then you're like,
They're
son of a, yeah, it's a Titanic. It's always gonna hit that iceberg.
they're funny about it too, because they'll sprinkle, like you'll forget, and then he'll stab somebody right through the chest with his lightsaber, and then
and like it.
you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Anakin's a little
He's
aggressive.
got a dark side. He's got a bit of a dark side to him. Oh man. Um, do do you see a need to come back to this to the Mandalorian, like season 4, or is this something you might revisit after we do, Ahsoka the movie? Like, do we ever have to come back here specifically to the point of telling the rest of whatever story you perceive this would continue, like we were just talking about, the Grogu in training kind of stuff, or can all that stuff kind of be, like your mind connects those dots, and the next time we see these guys, it'll be a cameo when they show up, and through a portal, and you're like, yeah, I know what they were up to because that's where we left them.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it all depends on how Ahsoka goes, because now, like, I think the purpose of the Ahsoka show is to just take that chess piece that is Thrawn and place him back up front.
Okay.
We're going to use this show because I don't think the purpose of her show was to beat him.
Right.
Sure, they're not going to beat Thrawn on this show, but they have to confront him directly because of the way Rebels ended.
Okay.
In her mission to, I guess, find
and she's been pretty bloodthirsty about that, and I don't even know what the
it's a big deal.
The Rebels is.
I would like Rebels is so good. Rebels is so heartfelt. It's such a heartfelt show because I remember hating it on principle. Like, why would I want to watch this? The fucking Disney, it's a Star Wars Aladdin, and just being so fucking wrong. How can I be so wrong? I mean, to see her mission now, she's bloodthirsty for a reason. And like I said, the Thrawn stuff, it can only be set up in 6 episodes because Ahsoka's only gonna be 6 episodes long. That can't be dealt with here.
Right.
Depending on how that gets set up, you can do a season of Mandalorian where he's working for the New Republic, and we're closing in on that movie. We're telling the final pieces of the story to get
because he's aware of what's going on with the New Republic, whatever opposition that they're facing, and he'd be in tune with that because he's working alongside them. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Because what do we
do with Mandalore?
That's what I was gonna say. I assume they'll just come and help. They are a gun now. Like we will need them at some point. We've put Mandalore back on the map for a reason. other than a satisfying conclusion to a story that they started in Clone Wars, like a reason they will use this piece of information much later on. Like this is a surprise tool for later.
Yeah.
Like, you can just see, like, we're out of reinforcements, and then a bunch of jetpack Mandalorians come flying in as the cavalry.
You know what they have to do? I just realized what they have to do. They have to find a way to redeem and make us care about those 5 planets that got blown up by the Death Star.
Oh yeah. No, we have to spend a lot of time on these planets now, so that when they blow up,
that's gotta be the plan, bro. We gotta have that moment where we spend it with just building in backstory. Grogu's in charge of these 5 planets or whatever. There is heart and soul, and then you do the. What are some of the when you walk away from this season? What are some of the moments you walk away with?
So one of the things I'm going to take with me from season 3 for sure is the freaking retaking of Mandalore. Like I said earlier, just wow at just seeing, like, honestly, there was also the episode before where we kind of got all of a sudden, like, we were like Game of Thrones, and
yeah,
I was like, wow, like this is what I always wanted when they introduced like the Darksaber and the warring factions and the taking of the kingdom. I was like, I always wanted this to get into that Game of Thrones territory. So we finally got there, and we saw all these Mandalorians, and they had their fleet, and they had their music, and I thought that was just the coolest thing. And the reason why I'm watching a show called The Mandalorian is all that Mandalorian lore.
Right.
But, taking it one step further, and then just but just having this kind of faux Mandalorian civil war between the fake Mandalorians and the real ones, but they're all. I'm
kind of glad it didn't go that way. I'm really kind of glad it didn't go that way, because that's what I thought they were setting up for.
Well, no, thankfully, like, I think the whole thing about the lore is, like, they've been civil warring for so long, we can stop this. But, like, being able to give us a scene where we have jetpack flying, Beskar armor wearing
people on both sides,
flying on both sides, it's like a live action Mandalore Civil War battle. It's just the craziest thing. Like, we've never seen this in live action. We
didn't know enough about them in general to be able to have 2 discerning different factions.
Well, like I said, it's like live. It was like live action Clone Wars for me. I'm gonna take that with me forever. And people will say, like, oh, the 3rd season of Mandalorian, it wasn't as good as the 1st or the 2nd. But, like, for me, this 3rd season was everything I needed it to be, and the 1st and the 2nd war too. That's what I'm just like, I'm so good. If this was the end, like, this was so good, I'm almost worried to come back. I don't want to see them anymore.
When Bo-Katan was shown last season, were you of the belief that they would use Mando season 3 to tie up those loose ends, or?
No, I thought Mando season 3 was going to be about him having to get rebaptized, Crisis of Faith thing or whatever. But they got rid of that immediately. They were
kind of soon,
instantly. And at that point, I thought, like, I don't know where this season is going. I don't know what they're doing next, and I'm excited. I didn't think they were going to take it all the way to its conclusion.
Yeah.
If people said they didn't think it was earned, I would understand where it came from. But I haven't seen any of those complaints. Most people were just really satisfied.
Yeah, I really dug it, and like I said, if you're somebody who, you're tiptoeing and you don't necessarily want to get into the, bathe in the living waters of Star Wars canon, this could be your series finale, unless there's another season coming up. If this is all to lead to a future or something that comes out down the line, I thought this was a perfect bookend to a lot of that stuff. Especially even the bookend to just the season, but overall, right, to the journeys that we have been introduced to, even to Moff Gideon, who I believe is still alive. He bought all that armor and did all that stuff to get blown up, but I'm almost certain his ass is still alive. But I think, completely watching that stuff kind of get bookended, is all we can ask for a show. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, go ahead and check out The Mandalorian season 3. I think you have at this point, or else you wouldn't be listening to this episode of the podcast.
I hope not.
Right? That makes sense, right?
Go watch Rebels.
Go watch Rebels.
I would tell people to watch Clone Wars, but I mean Clone Wars is longer. It's a little bit disconnected. I feel like it's not like you're not gonna get I get the closest thing you'll get to an overarching story is Ahsoka's character arc, which is different from Rebels, where it's like it's telling a singular overarching story across 4 seasons, like or now 5 with Ahsoka's live action show.
I've got to clear all my bases before we get to Ahsoka. So we get to the last season of was it Rebels that they just came out with the last season not too long ago?
Yeah, 2017.
Then we'll be in business to talk about it here on the podcast. But I can't wait. This has been a fun deep dive into all things Mandalorian season 3, even a little bit of before and after. I can tell you're incredibly passionate about it, so it's super cool, bro, to get you on and get because I don't know and I now want to know more. And that's what I think is the best part of fandom, when we can make it contagious. So hopefully, if you're listening to this, you're feeling all that love, because we try to do this each and every week as part of ComicBookClique.com. ComicBookClique.com has every single episode of the Major Issues podcast. That's over 270 episodes, like 500 hours of content of us talking about the latest and greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media. But as you know, our love about all these fandoms unapologetically. We come and give you guys our thoughts about all this stuff. We have reached 7 years as a part of Comic Book Clique. It's a hell of a hallmark. It's a hell of a monumentous occasion, but we wouldn't have done it without the people who listen to this podcast, share it, follow us on Facebook.com/ComicBookClique, Instagram/ComicBookClique, or use the hashtag ComicBookClique to talk about the newest, hottest, latest, and greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media. We couldn't do it without the people who go to our Patreon.com/ComicBookClique. Patreon.com/CBC Clubhouse and donate anywhere from $3 to $5 to $15 a month to help us keep our lights on here and afford the hardware and the software that we need to produce content for you guys. We have a lot of stuff coming that are in the works behind the scenes to be coming up very soon as part of Comic Book Clique, and some of that takes time, but some of it takes money. So all the stuff that's been donated, all the stuff that you guys give us, trust it, it's been used. And we can't wait to give you guys some new and exciting content. So like I said, don't forget to follow us all over social media. Make sure you're going to comicbookclique.com, Patreon, go to our TeePublic store, hit that shop CBC link. We get a kickback from that as well. But if you can't do anything monetarily, just rate and review us on iTunes. It's the quickest way we can grow as podcasters, find out what you like and what you don't. Cause I've been to the future where we do become the latest and greatest thing to come to comic books and comic book media. But if I tell you how that happens, I'll mess all this stuff up. And next thing you know, it's The Mandalorian starring Dwayne Johnson. And that would be that'd be absolutely ridiculous. You're like, no, Bo-Katan, I've got this. And I want to fight Darth Vader. We're gonna bring him back just so I can fight him, and I'm gonna
save Bo-Katan.
Yeah,
I just never forget everyone. The one thing before we close out for good, just know as a Star Wars fan, as a toxic Star Wars fan, that your precious Mandalore is now run by a beautiful lesbian couple. Go to bed with that knowledge.
Yes, as you should, and as they should. But I think that's all I got. Tell the fine people where they can find you.
You can find me over on Dirt Sheet Radio. Our Dirt Sheet Radio Twitter account is Dirt Sheet Radio. Dirt Sheet Radio on Facebook. We got the Dirt Sheet Radio Shopify shop. We got. Just go over to Dirt Sheet Radio and find me there. Don't look for my personal page. It's not as entertaining as you might think.
Well, now you guys know where to find him. But my name is George Serrano, aka the Don.
And it's John Escudero, aka Yogi.
And this has been our Mandalorian Season 3 recap and review. And remember, whether or not you're a foundling, an acolyte, a apostate, a believer, or just somebody who likes making a bunch of clones, remember that you are the clique. And always remember that you, yes, you are worthy.